Mr. Solo, you are welcome to come. Your arrival makes Mr. Grindelwald very happy. In front of the gate of Père Lachaise tomb, a group of oriental faces attended in costumes. Each of them is tall and burly, and like the leader Suo Chualuo, they wear flower feathers on their heads and long patchwork gowns. There are beads hanging around his neck, and he is dressed like an official of the later Jin dynasty. If it were a few decades ago, they would all be dressed like this. Looking at wizards, or possessors of extraordinary powers, all over the world, there is a big gap between them and the world of ordinary people. There are also many blood feuds between wizards and muggles. But there are always exceptions. These people are exceptions, and were the exceptions. It can be seen from the name, Suo Chualuo, that was one of the most prominent surnames in the past. Suo Chualuo once served the imperial court. Even if it is dead now, Suo is always running for its resurrection. This is true for him, and so is his followers. This is the price. Raising troops for thousands of days and using them for a short period of time, receiving worship from the imperial court for hundreds of years, and enjoying all the glory, wealth, resources and power, they have been firmly tied to the imperial court. When one is prosperous, both are prosperous. When one is lost, both are harmed. But as the old saying goes, a skinny camel is bigger than a horse. Even if they lost the support of the imperial court, Suo Chualuo and his followers still had huge power and combat power. There are more than 20 followers, all of them are powerful and powerful. They are obviously supposed to be long-range mages, but they all look like Shaolin monks. Even the loose robes on his body couldn't hide his powerful muscular outline. This is very unusual. Wizards rarely fight in close contact. In this case, the smaller the body and the more agile the body, the better. In the future there will be a strange little man who will win the World Duel Championship. In a group of wizards who increasingly pursue agility and precision in battle, this group of people is so strange. The tall figure can be said to be natural, but the burly and majestic body cannot be explained. No matter how you look at it, it should be a huge disadvantage, but each of them exudes an extremely dangerous and sturdy aura. Abernethy felt that he was not facing 20 wizards at all, but more than 20 dragons. As it should be. Where is Mr. Grindelwald? Solo said calmly. Not everyone is qualified to leave their name in his eyes. This tall, thin old man has a bad temper. Mr. Grindelwald asked me to lead you there. Abernethy led the way obediently. But by some mistake, Abernethy deliberately avoided the direction of Newt and others, and instead took a detour to the venue. HMPH. Is this the way the Wu Kui party treats guests? Approaching the venue, a big man behind Suo Chualuo pointed to the door with a worried look on his face. Let the most distinguished guest of the Wu Kui party go through the back door? Tycho. Suo Chualuo stopped him. Uncle. It's not that Tycho doesn't understand etiquette, it's actually that these foreigners go too far. We are just guests from afar, not to mention that we come with good intentions. Even ordinary passers-by shouldn't be treated like this. The man was extremely angry. Kayan said the etiquette. Suo Chualuo bowed before he became angry and said unfairly. Mr. Sohoro, and this gentleman, please calm down. Abernethy quickly opened his mouth to explain. If he didn't explain this, he would be like mud soaked in his crotch, which is either shit or shit. There are tens of thousands of attendees at the meeting outside, mixed with dragons and snakes, and there are probably a large number of Aurors from the Ministry of Magic among them. I am worried that someone will offend Sir and affect the friendship between the Wu Kui party and Jinshan. Okay. No need to explain, just go in. Suo Chualuo waved his hand. Although he cared about etiquette, he would not ask someone who did not understand Zhou etiquette to entertain according to the standard plan. This is a special event. Today's gathering is of great significance. Under this general premise, Suo Chualuo doesn't care about the minor details. Thank you for your forgiveness, VIP room. Aurelius was playing a game of finding trouble, looking for those incompatible targets among tens of thousands of people. This is a very interesting interactive game during the period before the official opening of the rally. Eh? Aurelius narrowed his eyes. Here comes Soshoro. It's normal for Suo Chualuo to come to the gathering, there's nothing surprising about it. But Aurelius didn't expect that Soshoro was still a big boss. More than big men stood neatly on both sides, as if they were all carved from the same mold. Visually, the height could not exceed the upper and lower line. The fierce and savage aura that filled his body made it difficult for Aurelius not to pay attention. Are these all Jinshan shamans? Aurelius' eyes revealed a hint of interest. He had no extraordinary power in his previous life, and he was reincarnated as a foreigner in this life. This was the first time he really saw the supernatural power of the East. Although he is just a shaman, he is far from a thousand-year-old sect like Buddhism, Confucianism and Taoism. In this world, Eastern countries are relatively mysterious. Aurelius also heard the introduction to the shaman from Nicolema. Shaman, in fact, can be understood as witch. It is not a wizard, but a shaman who was regarded as the leader of totem worship by ancient humans. Witches should be said to be the earliest supernatural beings on Earth. It has appeared as early as when humans were naked, wearing hair and drinking blood. At that time, human beings were just one of the many living beings in nature and had no time to fight among themselves. Witches with supernatural powers possess knowledge and inheritance. They are wise men and can deal with all supernatural threats. The tribal leader is a warrior, using spears and shields to defend the survival of the tribe. Most of the supernatural powers in the world come from the original witches, but Nicolema said that shamans may be the closest force to the original form of witches. The original is not necessarily the best, but the original has been tempered for countless years, and what remains is the essence. Shamans are so mysterious that no one knows what they are capable of. Historically, shamans in the Middle East and even Eastern Europe have left a great reputation. On the contrary, as for Jinshan shaman, Nicolema also had limited knowledge. It is impossible to predict what these Jinshan shamans are capable of. No wonder Grindelwald wants to form an alliance with Sotrallo. He is not just a thug, he is also a prince. Aurelius sighed with emotion. But you are equal to them. Nagini smiled. Aurelius was also happy. I'd like to lend you some good advice. Boom, boom, boom. Come in. Mr. Dumbledore, the meeting is about to begin. Mr. Grindelwald invites you and Mr. Soprano to. Okay, I get it. Old sir, we meet again. As soon as Aurelius entered the door, he saw a strong man surrounded by a group of strong men. The Qing dynasty had a very strict etiquette, and these Jinshan shamans still abide by it today. Everyone looked intently, put their hands on the armrests, and the beads on their chests were shining brightly, placed firmly in the center. Last time, the old gentleman refused to tell the truth. I wonder if I can get the answer today. Aurelius smiled and looked at Soshoro. Soshoro actually didn't like Aurelius before, or in other words, he didn't take it seriously. Thoreau was arrogant about what he had learned, and he could think highly of Grindelwald, but it was difficult for him to treat a young child as an equal. This was the reason why Suo Chualuo had a gun and a stick when we met before. But this time it's different. Aurelius proved himself. A real fight with swords and guns, 4 versus 30. More than 90% of them were elite aurors. Facing 4 young men, they ended up leaving more than a dozen corpses and more than a dozen wounded. This was enough to make Suo Chualuo look at him differently. The system of supernatural powers in this world is very strange. The gap between top combat effectiveness and ordinary combat effectiveness is not that big. In other words, the possessors of supernatural powers in this world are all high in attack and low in defense. This makes it not so unattainable to fight with too many ants and kill an elephant. This is why ordinary people will make the decisions in this world, and the Ministry of Magic will also exist in the magical world. When quantity can make up for the gap in quality, the master's deterrence and dominance are inevitably reduced. Even wizards like Dumbledore and Grindelwald might be able to defeat 1,200 aurors with their combined strength, but they would never be able to defeat 3,500. Just like Aurelius did in his own home, when hundreds of death curses formed an airtight firepower network, even Dumbledore and Grindelwald were deeply involved in it, they could only hate it. Before the Horcrux was exposed, the unkillable Voldemort was far more intimidating than the resurrected Voldemort. It is precisely because of the special situation of this world with high attack and low defense that it becomes difficult to fight with few against many. Taking British Aurors as a combat unit, if you can defeat 2, you are considered a powerful wizard, and if you defeat 3, you are considered an outstanding mage. Although there is only one more Auror, a combat team composed of 3 Aurors and 2 Aurors are completely different combat forces. Newt and Tina are roughly at this level, but the 2 of them are a little bit watery. Newt relies on the application of magical animals that he carries with him. This is a fighting mode that is unfamiliar to most wizards, and many people have suffered losses at his hands. Tina's words are actually not cheating. She is a real talent and hardworking combat power. She is the confidant of Graves, the previous chief of the Aurors of Magnesia, and her strength is superior to that of her colleagues. Moreover, she is an Auror from the Kingdom of Magnesia, and she is stronger than the British Auror. This is mainly because the severe situation in the Kingdom of Magnesia has caused the Aurors to be in a state of preparation for war for a long time. The British Aurors have obviously been at peace for a long time, and their combat effectiveness is not to mention the lowest in the world. But it's definitely not classy. If we have to compare, Tina's combat effectiveness is roughly at the level of Kingsley later, slightly higher than the elite Aurors. Not to mention Nagini, in terms of magic, even the third graders are not as good as her, but her unique beast form greatly improves her combat effectiveness. Slightly worse than Aurors, slightly better than ordinary Ministry of Magic staff. Among the four, the real main force is Aurelius. The composition of his strength is too complicated. Learned from the Code of Blades, combat skills, wizard magic, Obscurial summoner, as well as the Phoenix and the accompanying Zuowu. If you fight a positional battle and give Aurelius enough preparation time, he can use his death curse to trap and be invincible. As for encounters, Aurelius's level is also very strange. He is good at fighting in groups rather than fighting alone. In a single fight, he couldn't defeat both Grindelwald and Dumbledore, but in a group fight, the difference between 3 or 5 Aurors and 3 to 500 was actually not that big. There is no way. This is the nature of Obscurus. This is destined that once Aurelius realizes his talent, he will become the most terrifying battlefield weapon in a meat grinder. However, Chualuo didn't know these things. From his perspective, he could only see that the 4 young men of Aurelius were able to defeat an elite Auror attack of more than 30 people head-on. This kind of fighting ability is not far different from that of himself. But he is almost 70, and the oldest of the 4 young men is only 30. Don't bully young people into being poor. After Aurelius showed his combat prowess, Soshoro couldn't help but look at him high. Mr. Grindelwald's vision is indeed extraordinary. 4 against 30, he defeated the Auror siege head-on, and then left calmly. I was amazed. It doesn't matter whether others recognize this chair or not, but I do. Please, Dumbledore Mr. Soshoro stood up to apologize solemnly, and even personally pulled out a chair for Aurelius, which made Aurelius look at him with suspicion. This old man is arrogant, but he really admits his mistakes. No wonder Grindelwald formed an alliance with him. The arrogance and frankness of the 2 men are exactly the same. Aurelius's character is to accept soft things rather than hard things. People respect me as much as I respect others. Facing Soshoro's apology, Aurelius smiled and handed over his hand. Sir, you are generous, which makes me appear aggressive. Sir, please. A lot of Chinese red tape, but the other foreign devils looked at it in a daze. I couldn't understand the Chinese he was speaking, and I didn't understand the excuses. On the contrary, the Jinshan shamans who came with Sochuluo looked at Aurelius with a bit of kindness and intimacy. As a group of remnants who have lost their country, they need this recognition. But they didn't pay attention, or they noticed it but didn't care. What Aurelius performed was an authentic bow. Mr. Suo Chualuo, you brought people here today, not just to give your allies a strong reputation, right? Before Grindelwald arrived, Aurelius started chatting with Sotrallo. This time the chat was much more harmonious, and the old man's attitude was much better. It's just a guess, Suo Chualuo pointed out. Such a gathering can be said to be unprecedented, with tens of thousands of wizards gathering. Such a gathering cannot be hidden from the Ministry of Magic. So, sir, you have the same thoughts as me. Aurelius smiled, looked at Nagini beside him, and then at the large group of people behind Suo Chualuo. It's just that my approach is completely different. I prefer to be alone, but Mr. Grindelwald invites me and I dare not refuse, Suo Meridian said, twisting his beard. Don't you dare. I didn't hear you say you didn't dare. Good evening you two, it seems you are getting along very well. The real master is here, Mr. Grindelwald. Aurelius and Sohoro sat up straighter, maintaining due respect for the strong. Whether openly or actually, in terms of power or strength, Grindelwald is the strongest among the 3 allies. Grindelwald was wearing his iconic coat and riding boots, and was followed by Vita Rosier, who was well dressed, and a tall yellow man, who looked like he was worth 258,000 yuan. Especially his scrutinizing eyes were really annoying. Not only did Aurelius dislike it, Suo Chualuo and the Jinshan shamans behind him also resented it. I just worry that Grindelwald is still here, and it depends on the owner to beat the dog. Today is an extremely important day for me, the Umbrella Party, and us. This meeting is of great significance. Grindelwald took his seat, and the first sentence he spoke dismissed the small discussion before the meeting. To a very high level. Mr. Sohoro, I am very grateful for your support. Grindelwald glanced at the Jinshan shaman behind Sohoro and was very satisfied. You're welcome, I'm speechless, but if you have something to do, you might as well speak up, Suo Chualuo replied. Grindelwald nodded. Then I'm welcome, Mr. Sauter, at least nearly 200 of the attendees tonight are spies from the Ministry of Magic of various countries. Although their arrival was expected by me, I can't let them interrupt the proceedings. Here comes the point. Ruahei, how will he arrange it? Why not attack first and capture all the Aurors and Ministry of Magic spies instead of allowing them to enter the gathering? You know, those people are just here to cause trouble. I am confident that they will not use force. At least they do not dare to use force against the attendees. That will undoubtedly push these tens of thousands or even tens of thousands of wizards towards me. They will only attack my Wiccan party members. As long as if people are hidden among the attendees, they will not be able to take action. I have always been a gambler, but I can't bet this time. The significance of this gathering is too great, and it is the key to the future development and destiny of the Umbrella Party. Grindelwald looking at Swochualuo. Mr. Swochualuo, I hope you and your shamans will provide me with the final protection. Swochualuo pondered for a moment. Do you want us to suppress the venue? This is a cemetery. Grindelwald meant. Swochualuo suddenly realized and smiled thickly. Okay, I haven't seen such a big scene for a long time. Please. Grindelwald raised his hand to indicate that it was his time next. Swochualuo turned his back to the shamans. Jinshan believers obey orders. Exist. More than strong men spoke in unison, their bodies uniform, as if they were carved from the same mold. They all stood up and lined up, kneeling on one knee and hanging their heads to the ground. Taik, Tailong, Taiwan, and Taijong, the four of you will each lead their disciples and rush to the northeast, southeast, northwest, and southwest immediately, gathering the power of all ghosts to lock the heavens and suppress the souls, without making any mistakes. Well, seeing these shamans disappearing one after another, Aurelius felt a little emotional. So simple. This is an army of wizards. This is what Aurelius had always envisioned. Magic is just a tool, it should not divide civilization. This world should not be what the magic world is like, but what the world will be like if there is magic. Swochualuo's army like shaman gave him some confidence in his idea. Just with this order, the fighting power of these shamans cannot be weakened. Stones from other mountains can attack jade. Muggles can acquire all wizards, but wizards' magic cannot be learned by muggles. Most wizards turn a blind eye to such a significant advantage. Even though Grindelwald predicted the horror of muggle technology in the future, he only wanted to strike first and gain the upper hand, and never thought of learning. This is not right. Aurelius could understand the reason, but he didn't agree. But what makes Aurelius even more curious is the order he just received from Chualuo. Gather the power of all ghosts to lock the heavens and suppress the souls. This is interesting. Are there ghosts in this world? You can say yes, you can say no. As far as Aurelius knew, in this world, people's souls may remain after death and become ghosts. But the ghost does not wait for the king ghost. Ghosts as we usually understand them have no entity, can interfere with reality to a certain extent, create illusions, and can directly control people's spiritual will and indirectly control the body. But besides being incorporeal, ghosts have no other abilities. To put it bluntly, the ghosts in this world can only be used as NPCs asking for directions and do not pose any threat. If Swochualuo is talking about such a ghost, what power do millions and millions of ghosts have, let alone 10,000 ghosts? So without much thought, Aurelius was sure that the ghost Sohoro was talking about was definitely not a ghost. Mr. Sohoro, this ghost, Aurelius asked directly. Ghosts are strange creatures that use their souls to control magic by chance. China has discovered how to artificially create ghosts thousands of years ago. Although Jinshan is not good at this, it still has wonderful uses. Suo Chualuo explained in a dignified manner. Fan. Aurelius narrowed his eyes and thought of a person, Peeves. This is a character from Hogwarts. Many people think of it as a ghost, but it shouldn't be. Because this guy can use all kinds of prank props, it means that he can interfere with reality. From this point of view, Peeves is not a troublemaking ghost like its English name, but is indeed more like an Eastern ghost. According to Suo Chualuo's explanation, ghosts actually have entities, which is also the fundamental reason why ghosts can interfere with reality. Then this heaven-locking soul-suppressing thing. The Golden Mountain method. Oh, then I won't ask. Although nowadays, with the integration and exchange of supernatural power systems in various places, many things are interconnected, and they are all collectively referred to as wizards to the outside world, but the characteristics of wizards in different places are different. A glimpse of the leopard, what Jinshan shaman revealed, has already made Aurelius' curiosity burst. Don't worry, you will realize it sooner or later. Mr. Dumbledore. Grindelwald's address to Aurelius suddenly became formal. He had always called Aurelius by his first name, which meant that although he valued him, Aurelius was still a junior. But now the name has been changed. Mr. Sotero. Grindelwald called Sotero again. We are all wizards and pioneers with a common pursuit. We are bound to carry out this great cause. Before the gathering, I think we need to be honest and honest. Grindelwald said seriously. Seek common ground while reserving differences. Aurelius responded with a smile. As it should be. Suo Chualuo also nodded. Aurelius and Sotrallo had too little communication, and everything was connected to Grindelwald. This is not a gesture of alliance. Since it is a tripartite alliance, we must communicate with each other and be open and honest. Only in this way can a close alliance be established, instead of each having its own agenda and appearing to be inseparable. After all, this is extremely important to the three parties. Although the three parties have different pursuits of interests, they will definitely face the history of the world. We already have no advantage. If we can no longer cooperate sincerely, it will be a waste of time. Grindelwald waved his hand, and a 3D map of the magical world emerged from the ground. It was very different from the Muggle world map. There were many locations and even areas that Muggles had not discovered, and the key marked locations were not the capitals of various countries or the Ministry of Magic of each country. Europe is the base camp of the Umbrella Party. Grindelwald pointed his finger, and everything along Finland, the Baltic Sea, Poland, Romania, and all the way to the northern shore of the Mediterranean Sea was shrouded in red and gold. This is enclosure. Neither Aurelius nor Sohoro had any objections. This had been negotiated in advance. The old guy Soshoro was not polite. He rubbed his fingers. On the map, the entire Asia, from the polar regions in the north, to Sri Lanka and Malay in the south, to the Bering Strait in the east, and to Turkey in the west, was covered in gold and yellow. The old boy is not afraid of dying. The Russian Ministry of Magic and the Japanese Magic Institute are not easy to deal with. Soshorluo can't even stabilize its own fundamentals, so it wants to swallow up the whole of Asia? He cursed, but facing the looks from Grindelwald and Sohoro, Aurelius pointed at a black mist, covering America and the entire Caribbean. Grindelwald nodded, indicating that he had no objection. Suo Chualuo pondered for a moment and then responded. There are still large areas that are not covered on the map. There is no Britain in the territory designated by Grindelwald, and there is no South America in the area designated by Aurelius. Africa and Oceania are not involved at all. Oceania can be ruled out, and no one wants that damn place. The history is too short and it has not developed at all. Regardless of its large territory, in fact, the Oceania Ministry of Magic is only slightly stronger than the Portuguese Ministry of Magic. But Africa is different. Even though Africa is a history of blood and tears in the Muggle world, in the magical world, Africa is very powerful. In particular, except for Egypt and several Mediterranean countries, which have their own Ministry of Magic, most of Africa belongs to the same Ministry of Magic. Let's put it this way, if you exclude France's Nicolas Flamel and Britain's Dumbledore, Africa is the strongest. They are united, have a long history, and have a large number of people. It's unreasonable to not be strong. Grindelwald waved his hand, and Africa, South America, Japan, and the United Kingdom were highlighted. This is our main opponent in the future. Grindelwald said, none of us are familiar with Africa, but its strength is unforgettable for any of us. We should try not to conflict with them unless necessary. Aurelius agreed. Anyway, the land he enclosed was in America, across the sea from Africa, so the possibility of conflict between him and Africa was unlikely. Suo Chualuo also nodded. He has circled the Arabian Peninsula, but it is destined that he will not be able to control it for a while, and he will not be able to talk about bordering Africa. The most important thing is that Soshoro has had contact with the African magic world. 30 years ago, I met African wizards, and their strange spells were eye-opening to me. 30 years ago, there was with over hundreds of thousands of wizards, it is truly a formidable enemy. But fortunately, the African Ministry of Magic has always been closed and does not like to communicate with other countries. The representatives of the International Federation of Wizards have almost no sense of existence. If they are not provoked, these black guys prefer to sing and dance. Green DeVoe said with a smile. It may be that the difference in appearance is too obvious, or the emotions of the Muggle world have affected the magical world. The African Ministry of Magic is very independent, even more independent than the Chinese Ministry of Magic. Britain is a big trouble. Grindelwald knocked on the table, stared at the small island country, and sighed helplessly. Albus Dumbledore, for some reason, I can't make a move on him. Then let me do it for you. Suo Chualuo said, this person has a great reputation, but I don't know what his abilities are. Mr. Sotero, I must remind you that those reputations are not enough for Albus to express his abilities. I am not boasting. No one in the world is his opponent except me. Grindelwald's words were a bit off. Listen, it seems that both Sohoro and Aurelius were scolded. Aurelius didn't care, because this was a fact. At present, he could only be sure that he would not be defeated by Dumbledore, but he had no chance of winning. Suo Chualuo frowned. He felt that Grindelwald had become too ambitious and had destroyed his prestige. HMPH, I have hundreds of Jinshan disciples. How can I survive under a huge formation? Grindelwald still shook his head. This is not the time for flattery. Some things must be told the truth. Do you think you can kill me? Suo Chualuo remained silent. This kind of self-knowledge is still there. Grindelwald was able to leave calmly among hundreds of Jinshan shamans when they met him back then, let alone Grindelwald, who is now more and more unpredictable. I said, isn't it good for us to talk about how to kill my uncle here? Aurelius broke the deadlock with a smile. Actually, we don't need to do this. Mr. Grindelwald can't take action against him, and he can't take action against Mr. Grindelwald, right? So what are you worried about? I've heard a saying, 2 fists can't beat 4 hands. He's in the British Ministry of Magic as isolated and helpless. As long as Mr. Grindelwald can hold him back, he has no ability to stop our actions. Aurelius said, Mr. Sotero, there is a story called TNG's horse racing. Soshoro suddenly realized, you mean, Dumbledore is held back by Grindelwald, and as long as he can't take action, others are no match for you and me at all? That's right, we have many experts, but they only have one Dumbledore. The advantage seems to be on our side. Aurelius chuckled. So we shouldn't think about how to deal with Dumbledore. Our top priority is to do it as soon as possible by taking control of our own territory. The scope of influence that the Wiccan Party can expand has reached its limit. The next thing to do is to accumulate strength, hoard combat power, recuperate, and clear obstacles for us to hold back Dumbledore. And you and I must expand our territory as soon as possible, and finally step aside to help the Wiccan Party take over the British magical world. In this way, the world will have 5 points, the third part belongs to me, and the second part belongs to the other side. The overwhelming trend is irreversible, and the world can gain it. Having said that, Aurelius lay back and said with a smile, you too, we are doing a big thing. The structure is bigger. Things that are not on the table like conspiracy and conspiracy should not be what we should do. Thing, right? Okay. Grindelwald stood up suddenly. He looked a little excited, and everything in the past suddenly seemed stupid in his eyes. Suo Chualuo was also shocked. Such words were something they had never thought of. They are wizards, and studying magic consumes their emperor's energy and time. In a word, careerists like them are completely unqualified in the Muggle world. It was already difficult for them to use their brains to come up with a strategy at the level of the Romance of the Gods. Aurelius's strategy at the level of Water Margin was enough to shock them, as if a new door had been opened. The wizards are probably used to using magic to solve problems, and have forgotten the most proud skill of human beings from the time when they drank hair and blood to the current rulers of the earth, wisdom. Grindelwald's goal is great, leading wizards to become the masters of the earth. But look at what he did. As a leader, he went undercover, lied to children and was caught. Of course, no head of state is complete who has not been in prison, but there is no one who becomes a leader and goes back to jail. Thanks to the kindness of these wizards, Aurelius would have ended the matter with a death curse. What happened next? He ran to France with great fanfare, where a group of Wiccan elites killed 2 muggles, and then continued to deceive children. Okay, very persistent. At the end of the second story, the child was finally fooled and the goal was achieved, right? But the third part is anticlimactic. The original Credence was no match for Dumbledore and was teased. The only contribution he made was to attack Newt and steal a baby unicorn. Such a hip-drawing performance is really sorry for Grindelwald's hard pursuit of him in the first 2 films. It also made Grindelwald look like a fool in the first 2 films. Good guy. After being undercover for so long and living in jail for a few months, you can be exchanged for a second-rate thug who may jump at any time and die at any time. Putting aside these petty details, from a strategic perspective, what did Grindelwald do in order to achieve his greater interests? The first part is ignored. In the second part, he held a rally to win more fresh blood for the Umbrella Party and destroyed Paris in order to show his power and intimidate the people. Paying equal attention to kindness and prestige is considered qualified. The third part, seeking political status, first tried to clear the identity of a wanted criminal, and then successfully became one of the 3 candidates for the president of the International Confederation of Wizards through many followers, and even used unknown methods to establish the current president of the International Confederation of Wizards. Corruption, willing to drive away. Finally, the carefully prepared scene of Fengming Kashan was presented, using ancient traditions as an excuse to make Qilin kneel down. Putting aside the success or failure of the plan, this is a problem of execution, but there is a problem with his strategy formulation. Maybe he felt pressed for time, or maybe it was for some other reason. Let him try to unify the global wizarding world in one step through his identity as the president of the International Federation of Wizards. And he was so eager that he declared war with Muggles in a high-profile manner at the inauguration ceremony. Urgent, this is the only thing Aurelius sees. He is too impatient. On the first day, he was released as a wanted criminal. On the same day, he announced his candidacy for the president of the International Federation of Wizards. Within a few days, there was an election ceremony. If he was elected, he announced the start of war. He had never thought about how the International Federation of Wizards, an organization that was loosely affiliated with the Ministry of Magic, could respond to everything at once. The strategy, which had no technical content in the first place, was stumbling upon his attempts and was full of loopholes. And he is also very immature in his methods. In a word, be decisive or not, be gentle or not. Killing should be done or not, benevolence should not be done. Of course, it is impossible for Aurelius to say these things to Grindelwald. He only used the simplest trend analysis and deduction to win the dominance of the strategic layout in the 3-person alliance. Aurelius is not Grindelwald's subordinate, and he will not completely consider Grindelwald's interests. But he described his plan based on the current pursuit of common interests of the 3 alliances. Mr. Grindelwald and Mr. Soprano seek to restore the country for the greater good. If we want to win the dominance of the world, we must first win the dominance of the magical world. Therefore, during this period, we must still maintain the existence of the law of secrecy. Before fighting the outside world, you must first make peace with the inside. Aurelius glanced at the 2 of them. Grindelwald frowned, which was completely different from his usual behavior. Before going to New York as an undercover agent, Grindelwald led his henchmen to cause trouble in Europe in order to expose the wizarding world to the eyes of the Muggles as much as possible, thereby forcing the wizarding world to go to war with the Muggles. In this case, even if you don't want to in your heart, you can only be forced to follow Grindelwald, defeat the Muggles, annex the Muggles, and completely build a new world composed of an upper class dominated by wizards and a lower class composed of non-wizards. Sotrolo has formed an alliance with Grindelwald very early on, so he also approves of Grindelwald's approach. Seeing the expressions of the 2 of them, Aurelius chuckled. Both of you, I would like to remind you that the previous actions of the Umbrella Party have failed. You are presumptuous. Before Grindelwald could say anything, his subordinates couldn't help it anymore. They had paid so much for this, and many elite members of the Wiccan Party had been killed or arrested in previous operations. Hearing Aurelius's comments, these Wiccan elites were furious. But no one said a word, because this was a speaking occasion for the 3 alliance masters. Except for one person, Aurelius looked around and saw that disgusting face at a glance. He narrowed his eyes, and the black mist swept him up and pressed him hard against the wall. Are you qualified to speak here? The cold voice seemed to be in Crow's ear. Crow, whose throat was choked by the black mist, struggled desperately, but could not make a sound. Mr. Grindelwald, I think there are a lot of people here. What do you think? Aurelius looked at Grindelwald. Grindelwald winked and struck with the wand in his hand. The black mist of Aurelius was instantly dispersed by him. Crow, who was hanging in the air, fell down and let out a cry of pain. Crow, please take them to guard the venue and maintain discipline. Crow looked gloomy and lowered his head. I understand, sir. Vita stays. Vita, who had just moved her buttocks, sat down again. She had no intention of leaving at first. I'm sorry, Mr. Dumbledore, my subordinates are a little ignorant. Grindelwald covered him casually and raised his hand. Please continue. Mr. Grindelwald, how long have you been operating? More than 10 years. Grindelwald's face didn't look good. More than 10 years ago, he was provoking the nerves of the Ministry of Magic in various countries, but the results were very unsuccessful. To this day, Muggles are still dumbfounded and do not know that magic and wizards are still on 2 parallel lines with Muggles. With all due respect, your failure is natural. I need a reason. Grindelwald was calm. He also noticed that there seemed to be some problems with his previous ideas. No matter how stupid he was after 10 years, he should realize that something was wrong. But what's wrong? Grindelwald needs someone to clear up his confusion, even if it's just to provide some ideas. Failure is not terrible. What is terrible is that you don't know why you failed. If you don't know why you failed, you can't sum up your experience. Such failures will continue to happen. Is there something wrong with Grindelwald's strategy? No. Although forcing someone to go to Langshan is not a lofty strategy, and may even be a bit underhanded, it can still be regarded as a means to achieve the goal. The problem is the implementation. If you were forced to go to Langshan, how can you do it? Forced by crime, he had to go to Langshan. In the previous actions of the witch cult party, the overall action should be to use themselves as bait to beat up the Muggles, and then let the Muggles discover wizards and learn about the existence of the magical world. Then, the hatred of the witch cult party will be spread throughout the world. The wizarding community and even the entire magical world, of course, may also have greed for magic and coveting a magical world. No matter what it is, Ma will launch an entire war against the magical world. Aurelius smiled. Once again caught in the War of the Middle Ages, Muggles and wizards are fighting to the death again, but this time, Muggles' war will no longer come from the brainwashing of the church, but from the greed in their hearts. Will be more thorough and more determined. Wizards will have to fight for their own survival. In the war, whoever can lead them to victory, whoever has more powerful power, will be supported. Mr. Grindelwald, you will be the only candidate. In the face of a powerful enemy, people will ignore many things. What provokes war, any crime, and any idea are all worthless. The more fervent the Muggle attack, the more stable your position will be. Under the pressure of this external force, the magic world will passively unite around you, and you will not be able to defeat them without a single blow. Take control of the magical world. That's basically it, except, Dumbledore, as the two poles of wizards around the world, your power will become the source of belief among wizards who are at stake in life and death. When there are other choices, those factors that should have been ignored will once again become the weight that affects the balance. That is to say, you may not have many wizards to support you. But I think you don't really care about this, right? Aurelius believed. What do you think? Grindelwald smiled and asked, leaning on his chair. Dumbledore was once a close friend of you. You had the same pursuits, including the greater good. I think he also contributed here. Bang bang bang. I really doubt that the Dumbledore family is really not a family of prophets. You know a lot. Grindelwald smiled while stroking his hands. This profound secret shocked Sodra, Vita, Nagini and others. That Grindelwald is extremely calm. It's not that he didn't care about this secret period, otherwise it wouldn't have become a secret, but he used this way to express his sincerity. This is a meeting that will not have any reservations. You are not greedy for power. Aurelius gave him a deep look. This was what he admired most about Grindelwald. A terrorist who founded the Wiccan Party and later sought to be president of the International Confederation of Wizards is not greedy for power. Who would believe it? Aurelius believed that this was his judgment based on everything he knew. Dumbledore, who lives in school and teaches without ambition, is actually the most power-hungry person in the world. Grindelwald, who is active on the world stage and spreads ambition and war rhetoric, is the person who cares least about power. It seems contradictory, but that's because they are extremely smart people. They know how to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. Dumbledore, who had a strong desire for power, chose to use the school as his own cage to lock his desire for power inside. Grindelwald, who loved magic very much, used power to arm himself to suppress his study of magic. It sounds incredible, but this is the best option. If it is too strong, it will break easily and it will be injured. Dumbledore didn't want to be a slave to rights. He isolated himself from rights before he came into contact with them. Whether it is from the fact that he still only regards friendship as a friend when facing the fierce attack of the Wiccan Party and does not stand out in his own league, or from the future confrontation with Voldemort and the dissolution of the Order of the Phoenix after Voldemort's defeat, it can be seen that Dumbledore is afraid of power. How do you know that Grindelwald loves magic? In fact, Grindelwald may not necessarily love magic, but he certainly loves power. This can be seen from his claims. He doesn't care about bloodline, he only cares about the ability to cast spells. This represents the important place magic holds in his heart. And his study of magic is also obvious. Nicknamed the Grindelwald gas stove, it pushed the black magic of Li Huo to an unprecedented level. The resurrected Kirin can hide it from countless talented wizards all over the world, which is also his magical achievement. In his pursuit of power, he was expelled for studying black magic and stole the Elder Wand. Throughout the first half of his life, he was running for power. This is very separate from what he is doing now. Most people who advocate strength have one characteristic: independence. In the first half of his life, Grindelwald fit this point very well. He studied black magic for strength and was expelled. He was passed for the Elder Wand. Even the acquaintance and parting ways with Dumbledore fall within this characterization. But look what he is doing now. Dumbledore used the school as a prison to imprison his desire for power, and Grindelwald used power as armor to isolate the backlash of magic. These are the two poles of the magical world in Aurelius's eyes. Even Nicholas Flamel, the legendary alchemist, is using Muggle life to numb his decline in alchemy. These great wizards seem to be deliberately staying away from what they do best. Aurelius's research on magic was far from the level of these three people, and he could not understand their purpose of doing so. But this weird phenomenon deserves his deep thought and vigilance. But he also knew very well that he couldn't do it. He craves strength, he pursues power. He knows that these are the demons in his heart, but he will not imprison them, but will release them. He firmly believed in his heart that no matter how evil he was, could he be worse than the Obscurus born from all negative energy bodies? He is the incarnation of extreme evil. Why is he afraid of becoming evil? Whether these wizards are fighting around Dumbledore or fighting around you, it makes no difference to you. All you want is to fight, defeat Muggles, dominate the world, and defeat the technology that Muggles rely on to compete with wizards. Use magic to devour technology, thereby establishing a barrier for wizards to prosper forever. Grindelwald sighed. You know what? I regret it a little. Why is it that the person who understands me best is always Dumbledore? You're right. I only care about the results. I don't care about the process. I can't pronounce those weird terms of yours, but this is indeed what I mean. Grindelwald straightened up, and the Elder Wand in his hand lightly he tapped the table. Then, Mr. Dumbledore, please explain to me. Why? My ideas failed again and again, and I can't even understand the reason for the failure. The reason why the Umbrella Party's plan failed is actually very simple. You ignored some common sense things. Aurelius Shaushong spread his hands. Common sense? Grindelwald frowned. Is it possible? Not to mention he is arrogant and smart. Even if he really didn't expect it, he still has a group of elite followers. He is not a dictator like Voldemort. He can listen to suggestions. Didn't any of so many elites think of it? I have collected previous newspapers. The Umbrella Party has carried out similar operations in nearly half of the countries in Europe, but was thwarted by the Ministry of Magic of each country. Frustration. I don't think this word is appropriate here. This is just self-praising by those incompetent Ministry of Magic. Grindelwald was somewhat dissatisfied. Although the previous plan failed to achieve full success, it was not considered a failure. Failure to meet the plan's expectations is a failure, even if these Ministry of Magic have no idea what they have done. Aurelius corrected. Take the latest Habsburg operation in Switzerland as an example. You have not yet launched the operation. Switzerland and several Ministry of Magic Aurors have arrived. Isn't this plan considered a failure if we were forced to evacuate before there was any commotion? This is because, Vita argued, but she had nothing to say. She could quibble that this was part of the plan, so that the Umbrella Party could reasonably disappear and buy Grindelwald time to go to the Magnesium. But as one of the planners, implementers and participants of the plan, Vita knows very well that the two are not contradictory. So, why did it fail? They came too fast. Grindelwald looked up at the ceiling and squinted his eyes. Yes, then why did they come so fast? Why? Grindelwald was puzzled. Is there any need to ask? Apparition. Why else? Aurelius smiled and said, yes, apparition, but it's not just apparition. Maybe you have lived in the magical world your whole life, so you will be accustomed to some phenomena. After speaking, he pointed to himself. What a coincidence, in the past, I spent most of my time in the Muggle world, and I was able to discover some things outside of the wizard's perspective. Quick. Apparition gives wizards high mobility. Through magic and magical products such as portkeys, flow networks, and apparition, they can appear in any corner of the world in just a few minutes. That is to say, if early be prepared, the wizard's attack will be extremely fast. In a few minutes, these Aurors can gather from all over the world and come to you to prevent the implementation of your plan. Aurelius knocked on the table, and the text projection formed by the black mist hanging in midair. And these few minutes are enough for you to do. You can only escape. It is impossible to implement the plan to cause high-profile destruction in the Muggle world. If you want to complete the plan, you must have suddenness and confidentiality. What they have in common is that it is hidden from the eyes and ears of the Ministry of Magic of various countries. This is impossible. Vita vetoed flatly. If there are just one or two people, the influence caused by them cannot meet the requirements at all. Even if they are influential, the Ministry of Magic can eliminate them in a short time. The New York incident is the best example. Half of New York was destroyed, thousands of people were in trouble, and tens of thousands were injured. But according to my intelligence, the Magic Congress completed the aftermath in just half an hour, and everything was as usual. The New York incident left no trace among Muggles, Vita said with a frown. As an intelligence officer of the Umbrella Party, she is accustomed to speaking with facts. If we need to gather more people, there will be too many people talking, and the possibility of keeping secrets is almost zero. Our past experience confirms this, and we will often make two preparations like this gathering. This is not about finding a few spies. Traitors can solve it, because many leaks are not caused by personnel. Looking Glass, magic spell, there are too many ways. Yes, that's why I don't agree with you continuing to act like this. Aurelius nodded. So that's it. Grindelwald squinted. Our actions require a thorough plan, and we even have to make two plans to deal with the almost inevitable arrival of Aurors from the Ministry of Magic from various countries, and they only need to make one to disrupt us. Plan. Which means that no matter what we do, they will always be prepared. When we act, it takes us more time, but it only takes a few minutes for them to arrive. You are right. This if the plan can no longer be carried out, the sacrifice will be in vain. But I don't understand. If this is the case, any plans we make seem to be of no value. They will always be one step ahead of us. Suo Chualuo frowned. No, Aurelius looked at them with a smile. Why would I say my thoughts in front of so many people? Because I am not afraid of them knowing it all. Conspiracies will have very little effect after being exposed, but conspiracy will not. Aurelius smiled and looked at everyone present. Even though some of them were driven away by him and many were sent out by Suo Chualuo, there were still more than 10 people present here. We can think of it this way. Mr. Grindelwald's idea is a dead end. No matter what we do, the Ministry of Magic will be invincible. Aurelius looked at Sotrallo opposite him and Grindel in the middle. Wah. Since we can never defeat our opponents on the chessboard, then. Why don't we find a way outside the chessboard? How to do it? Suo Chualuo asked. Aurelius's smile grew thicker, and a hint of coldness flashed in his eyes. We can't beat our opponents, and we can't solve the problem, so why don't we get rid of the person who raised the problem? Ministry of Magic. Suo Chualuo said in a stunned voice. As long as we solve the Ministry of Magic, no one will cause us any more trouble, and no one will interfere with our plans. But Dumbledore. Vita still had concerns. Dear, remember. There is only one Dumbledore. Even if he has 8 arms and 8 legs, how many of us are there? Aurelius held his forehead. Start a war? Grindelwald could not make up his mind. Everything can be said to be fighting behind the scenes now. Once the war starts with the Ministry of Magic, everything will be put on the table. This pressure is not small, and not everyone can make this determination. On the other hand, Grindelwald is still thinking about the future war with Muggles. The magic world cannot suffer too much loss, otherwise why would it start a war with Muggles? The Ministry of Magic of various countries has gathered a large number of wizard elites. No. Let me think, everyone. First of all, I didn't say to kill them all. Aurelius was a little speechless. There are 3 million wizards in the world, and nearly 1 million are working for the Ministry of Magic. Is it possible that we still want to kill these million wizards? Kill them all? Their families are the remaining 2 million. Then there's no need to think about the future, the wizards are gone. Aurelius said tiredly. How is this possible? The social structure of the magical world is very deformed. It is unimaginable for ordinary people. Nearly 1/3 of adult wizards work directly or indirectly in the Ministry of Magic. Among the remaining 2/3, in Europe and North Africa, a large number of wizards will work for Gringotts, a small number will stay in school, and the remaining wizards will be people from other walks of life. Outside of Europe and North Africa, without Gringotts, these wizards merged into other industries. Let's put it this way, the professions available to wizards are very limited, so limited that they are simply not enough to form a normal society. The main reason lies in magic, which is magical and can enable most wizards to solve most of their daily needs. Many industries have lost their existence value, and naturally there are no practitioners in these industries. Since the Ministry of Magic has taken over a large number of jobs, the Ministry of Magic has become a close relative in the wizarding world. This is also the reason why the Ministry of Magic in various countries is mostly incompetent but can survive for hundreds of years. Under such circumstances, to brazenly start a war with the Ministry of Magic is to make enemies of wizards all over the world. There are many ways to eliminate the Ministry of Magic, and direct fighting is the next best option. Aurelius patiently explained to these idiots. These can be discussed later. The most urgent task is to solve our current troubles first. Trouble? Yes, I actually have nothing. I am not a wanted criminal. Maybe Mr. Grindelwald and everyone in the Wiccan party don't care much about the title of a wanted criminal, but ordinary wizards do. Aurelius responded. The current situation of the Wu Kui party said. Since ancient times, few people who have opposed the majority of people have had a good end. The Wu Kui party is now a wanted criminal from top to bottom. This undoubtedly created a gap between the witch cultists and the large number of ordinary wizards. We can't play conspiracies, and if we want to be upright, we need to at least be able to enter the house upright. We are not terrorists, we are pioneers, for the future of wizards, for greater interests. We are obviously doing something great cause. Why do we seem to be a group of terrorists? Aurelius looked at everyone. In fact, what they do is not much different from that of terrorists, but this is something he can say or not. Terrorists don't call themselves terrorists. Escape from the fate of being wanted, use our ideals and our beliefs to win more support. This is what we should do. Most wizards are sensible and they will choose the right choice between us and the Ministry of Magic. One side. Aurelius said impassionedly. The Ministry of Magic without support from anyone, the Ministry of Magic that is alienated from morality, has no value of existence. The torrent of history will bury them in the wind and sand. We are the future. Bang 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 bang. These words deceived several Wu Kui party members into a rage, and even Suo Chualuo's eyes sparkled with excitement. But Grindelwald was thinking. What Aurelius said was basically nonsense, and it was also what Grindelwald had said and thought in the past. There is only one real strategic plan: escape from the fate of being wanted. Grindelwald is considering whether this suggestion is feasible, or whether it needs to be implemented. He really didn't care whether he was wanted or not, and neither did most people in the Umbrella Party. They are elites and have experienced hundreds of battles. How easy is it to catch them? With a wanted warrant on their backs, they can travel unhindered in Europe. This is the double guarantee of its strength and power. But Aurelius's thoughts were completely opposite to those of his past. Grindelwald wanted to force the wizards to side with him. Aurelius, on the other hand, advocated peaceful confrontation on the surface, fighting for publicity and ideas to win the support of more wizards. Transform the unknown and more sinister secret disputes into an open battle of ideas. This is a kind of softness, and it gives up the greatest advantage of the Wiccan party, Grindelwald's super combat power. They all understand that even if it turns to the bright side according to what Aurelius said, there will never be less fighting behind the scenes. But there is one advantage, that is, they are the one who takes the lead. As long as they do not continue their previous attacks, the Ministry of Magic has no reason to use force against them. Once the Ministry of Magic uses force, great. Just right. The Wu Kui party will not hesitate to make it public, and the attack and defense can easily turn around. From representing justice, the Ministry of Magic will immediately become a being despised by thousands of people. The Wiccan party has no reason to argue with you about morality, which means that you have no moral ethics. The pros and cons will be reversed, and the witch cult party will win the sympathy of more wizards. People's hearts are lost bit by bit, but also won bit by bit. What exactly? Control the media, use it as a mouthpiece, formulate a program, and use propaganda to win over the people. We don't need to do anything else. The Ministry of Magic is well known for its incompetence. As long as we don't make mistakes, they themselves will push the wizards to our side. Ori. Lias made a circle with his finger. This is why I said that the CCFE party should no longer carry out major actions in Europe, but should echo the actions of me and Mr. Sohoro. Propaganda. What kind of publicity can compare with today's rally? Vita was quite proud. Tens of thousands of wizards gathered together to listen to Grindelwald expounding his thoughts. Such an event was unprecedented, and this event was officially organized by the Wizarding Party. Aurelius shook his head. Those are two different things. The advantage of a rally is concentration. There is no third party to transmit information, and it can spread Mr. Grindelwald's original intention to the maximum extent. But you also said that among tens of thousands of people the gathering is unprecedented, but there are still millions of wizards who cannot come. This is the role of the media. We can't be without words and allow others to pour dirty water without repaying the words. This will not achieve the strategic purpose I just mentioned. Grindelwald raised his eyebrows. This is not an easy task. Newspapers in various countries are controlled by the Ministry of Magic. Many newspapers or even a department of the Ministry of Magic. Other tabloids do not have much value, _. This is also the most difficult part. We can fully expect that as long as it is our newspaper, it will be difficult for the Ministry of Magic of various countries. When countries control newspapers, they realize the power of public opinion. However, although it is difficult, it is not impossible. What I am discussing is only at the strategic level. How to develop the media and establish public trust depends on the execution ability of the Umbrella Party. After that, Aurelius glanced at Grindelwald and Vita next to him. This is also what I am worried about. With all due respect, the execution ability of the Wuqi Party is really not that good in my case. These words made Vita's face turn cold, but after thinking about his previous actions, he had no reason to refute, so he could only reply firmly, as long as Mr. needs it, the Wuqi Party will do whatever it takes. That would be the best. Aurelius smiled and asked Grindelwald, Mr. Grindelwald, do you think this plan is worth a try? Grindelwald sighed and nodded. Although it is completely different from my idea, at least it sounds like it has the conditions for implementation now. Vita, after the gathering, the Ministry of Magic in various countries will definitely be nervous for a period of time. We will suspend most of our activities for 1 year. We will spend a year to accumulate strength. You have 1 year to do this. Yes, sir. Aurelius saw that Grindelwald accepted the plan, and then said, Mr. Sotero, I don't know much about the situation in the Far East, so I won't do anything about it. I'll tell you my plan. Please. With a flick of the finger, the map is locked on the American continent. The Magical Congress of the Magnesium Kingdom is also an opponent that cannot be underestimated, with many elites. But fortunately, the Magical Congress also has a lot of troubles. Muggle hatred and purges are causing trouble. All involved a lot of energy and personnel from the Magical Congress. Unfortunately, I am weak, so I cannot directly return to the Magnesium country. If Mr. Dumbledore is short of manpower, I can provide some. Although my situation is not very good, I can still make ends meet with 300 to 500 shamans, Sohoro said. Aurelius smiled. Thank you, Mr. Sohoro, but I won't use it for the time being. My plan is, here. Caribbean highlights. You want 9 cities in the Caribbean. Grindelwald frowned and said disdainfully, what's the use of coming to a place like that? Oh, Mr. Grindelwald, this is the difference between you. You are sitting in the European base and have countless witchcraft elites under your command. Naturally, you look down on this chaotic land like the Caribbean. But to me, this is a treasure. Aurelius pointed his finger, and the 9 wizarding cities in the Caribbean lit up. Except for the Sirens, the other 8 cities are places of pure chaos. There are criminals, wizards, muggles, and squibs here. It's too chaotic, but it's just because it's chaotic enough that I can win in the chaos and fish in troubled waters. The most important thing is that it is developed well enough and has the most magical ships in the world. It is a truly independent kingdom that can advance, attack, retreat and defend. Listening to what you said, this seems to be a treasure land. Grindelwald looked at the Caribbean Sea shining on the map. No, if this place is really a treasure, I won't let the chaos continue until now. Aurelius smiled and said, this is the most suitable place for me to establish a cone, the foundation of establishing a cone, because I am alone. I am alone. Most of them don't have any ambition to be king and hegemony. The 9 Caribbean cities are real places of chaos, and they are afraid to avoid them. However, those who try to dominate have become useless here. The complex personnel composition, racial composition, coupled with the xenophobic it has customs in a dangerous environment, and it is not a strategic location. Mr. Grindelwald, do you think this is still a treasure place? So, it's useless to anyone except you. Grindelwald sighed with emotion. My honey is his arsenic. Aurelius concluded. I will take this place as a base camp and bridgehead. I can advance, attack, retreat or defend. There is no Ministry of Magic here, and no one can be mine. Obstacles, I am alone, based in the 9 Caribbean cities, and the manpower comes from the Caribbean. I want to unify the name of the 9 Caribbean cities, it's fair to say. The only gateway to the 9 cities in the Caribbean is the Sirens, which results in the other 8 cities in the Caribbean having extremely weak connections with the world of magic. As long as I get stuck in the information network of the Sirens, I have enough time to digest the Caribbean realm for up to 3 years. The results of the battle can be digested, and it can be built into an iron barrel in at most 10 years. And at that time, Aurelius showed a smile. I can send my troops eastward to help fight in Europe, or I can go north to the mainland to compete with the Americas. I think that whether it is traveling eastward to Europe or holding back the American magic world, it will be of great help to the Wiccan party. This is also the greatest help that I, as an ally, can provide to our alliance. Okay. Grindelwald couldn't help but stood up. He paced slowly in the field, but just stalling is not enough. There is the Magic Congress in the north of the Caribbean and the Brazilian Ministry of Magic in the south. Once. This is also the only problem. I have already considered the South American magic world. I always like to calculate defeat before calculating victory. Aurelius explained. No matter whether I can win North America in a short time, the South American Ministry of Magic there will be no energy or manpower to take care of the situation in Europe. Sotero and Grindelwald nodded. The reason is very simple. Taking over North America, a new force defeated the old Magic Congress. Whether it was its own losses or the subsequent consumption of spoils, Aurelius would be in a period of weakness. In this case, it is actually a bit reluctant to face South America, but considering the top combat power of the magic world, it is still possible to enter a long-term confrontation evenly. This is what Aurelius calls holding back the magical world of South America. If North America is not captured, resulting in a north-south pincer attack, there is no need to digest territory, and it is a local battle. It is not too difficult to hold back the Magic Congress in the Ministry of Magic of South America. In fact, the key is Aurelius himself. After all, this is the magic world, and even low-level demons have extraordinary power. The deterrent of personal combat power still exists, especially for top combat powers like them. That's really not on the same level as ordinary wizards. As long as you can hold back the Magical Congress in South America, the Wiccan Party will be satisfied. I wish you success, Mr. Dumbledore. Grindelwald sighed, winked at Vita behind him, and then said, I know you are single and weak, and the Umbrella Party is also short of manpower now, but as allies, we will treat each other with the greatest sincerity. Vita, open all our Caribbean intelligence to Mr. Dumbledore. Yes, sir. Then it's better for me to be respectful than to obey. After talking for a long time, Aurelius had finished what he wanted to say. The specific implementation will not be discussed here. There is not enough time and there is no time. It's enough to make suggestions for the Wu Kui Party and talk about my own plans. What's left is work. Aurelius looked at Sohoro. Suo Chualuo laughed, stood up and walked out. Then let me talk. The situation in the Far East is not optimistic. Sohoro's first words made Grindelwald's eyelids jump. The prosperity of China is as bright as the past. Wizards were introduced to the Middle Earth only a few decades ago, but there are hundreds of thousands of chi refiners in the Middle Earth. Led by the three religions, there are countless famous families. We, Jinshan, took advantage of the national destiny to enter the Middle Earth. The soil is prosperous, but in terms of foundation, it is still not as good as some thousand-year-old great religions. Aurelius listened quietly. He knew very little information about the magical world in the Far East. Because I, a fellow practitioner of Jinshan in the country, have to rely on the secular world to restore the country. Currently, the practice world in the Far East is divided into the North and the South by the Ministry of Magic and Chi refiners. Each school has established its own sect. The court has collapsed. The practice world is far away from the court. It is a time when the dragons are leaderless and divided. Listening to Sohoro's introduction, Aurelius gradually constructed a general system of supernatural powers in the Far East. The Chi alchemists and wizards in Middle-earth are treated completely differently. Wizards are feared and persecuted by ordinary people, but Qigong practitioners take the initiative to integrate. Therefore, there is no concept of a magical country, like the Ministry of Magic in the world of Qigong, because they are subject to the rule of the imperial court. But now, the last dynasty in Middle-earth has collapsed, and the new modern country is incompatible with the Qi refiners. Therefore, it can be regarded as cutting off the greatest help and way for the Qi refiners to enter the world. And Lu Dao, a key figure with dual heritages as a Qi-gator and a wizard, appeared, not only bringing the wizard's heritage to Middle-earth, but also what he saw and heard in the magic circles of other countries. This has caused the spiritual practice world, which is in the midst of a 1,000-year change, to generate many kinds of ideas and explore them. Some are willing to follow Lu Dao and establish the Chinese Ministry of Magic, some follow tradition and are based on sects and clans, some are like Jinshan represented by Suo Chualuo, who recast the dynasty, and some looking for more future possibilities. It was from this time that the supernatural powers of the king, such as the Qi refining pressure, began to become increasingly distant from the world of ordinary people. Of course, this gradual distance is also relative. To this day, the supernatural power of Middle-earth is still the closest to ordinary people. Especially some Qi refiners represented by Fu Lu Sanshan. At this time, Middle-earth is not like 100 schools of thought contending, but rather like 100 schools of thought contending. Many trends cannot be noticed until one is in a certain position. But Aurelius and Sochaluo's judgment is the same. Middle-earth at this time is also a period of great change. Soshoro explained the situation in the Far East and his plan. Aurelius, it is difficult to make an objective evaluation. The situation in the Far East is far more complicated than that in Europe. There are both native Qigong practitioners, wizards who have emerged in recent years, and extraordinary powers such as Suo Chualuo who have integrated into the extraordinary circle of the Far East with the changes of historical dynasties. New and old, tradition and innovation, local and imported. There are too many conflicts, and it is not an exaggeration to say that everything becomes a mess. There are only 3, 5 or 8 regiments left to help out. And obviously, in the Far East, Busan Shaman is not considered strong even for playing. Speaking of itself, in the tripartite alliance, Aurelius is the most powerful alone, followed by Suochualuo's Jinshan Shaman. Although he seems to be well trained and has the secrets of the Far East, he is far inferior to Wu Kui party. If Suochualuo is willing, he can completely integrate into the Far East's native and become a branch of Qi refiners or wizards. In terms of Jinshan's power and accumulation, although it is not first class, it is still one of the best in the Far East sect. But he was unwilling to do so. The hundreds of years of being bound to the secular dynasty gave them all the convenience, but it also made their bond with the secular dynasty extremely deep. Let's put it this way, in other places, the way of thinking between wizards and ordinary people is very different, but the Jinshan shamans in Sochualuo are all 8 banners elites. Their way of thinking is no different from that of secular people. Loyalty to the emperor and service to the country has become something engraved in their bones. This is also the fundamental reason why Suo Chualuo worked hard to restore the country. But think about it, he wants to restore the country, what other sects can do? Good guy, after finally suffering the end of his life, can he make you, a lonely tree, stand upright? It was already weak, and it set an almost impossible goal. One can imagine his situation. In this case, Soshorlu's planning is from the outside in. It is exactly the opposite of Aurelius's policy that before fighting against the outside world, one must first pacify the inside. He wants to feed back from the mundane to the transcendent world. All I can say is that it's a good idea, and I won't comment on anything else. It sounds like there is still some possibility of implementation, but because Aurelius is really not familiar with the Far East, and he knows more about it from Sohoro just now, he can't judge, so he has to let him go. To put it bluntly, let alone him asking for help, even Grindelwald, it doesn't matter whether he listens to his advice or not. He didn't expect it to work anyway. Of course, this thing refers to Grindelwald's so-called greater good, that is, wizards ruling the world. It's impossible if you think about it. Wizards are based on pure blood inheritance. All destiny is sealed at the age of 11. If you can cast a spell, you can cast a spell. If you can't cast a spell, you will never be able to do it in this life. The ascending channel is completely cut off. 300 to 500 years ago, it could still fool ordinary people even if it was not intact. Now? What are you thinking about? It has been more than 5 years since the Soviet Union was founded. If you want to maintain dominance, you must open an upward channel. You can be very narrow, but you can't have it. At the age of 11, when he was still an ignorant half-grown baby, he was destined to be a low-class person in his life. It was a miracle that his rule could be established. Therefore, Grindelwald's so-called greater good was an impossibility from the beginning. However, Aurelius felt that he could use this special, chaotic time period to complete some of his ideas. This is also the reason why Aurelius came here and formed a tripartite alliance with Grindelwald and Soprano. We've basically talked about it, exchange ideas, and I can help with what you have to do. We can discuss it and reach an agreement, and then the job is done. It just so happened that the small meeting came to an end. Sir, it's almost time. Vita said softly to Grindelwald, who was chatting enthusiastically with Solo. Grindelwald nodded, turned to Sotrallo and Aurelius and said, "You too, the time has come." "That's great. I've been fascinated by this grand event for a long time," Suochualuo said, twisting his beard. "Ha, let's move to the venue?" Aurelius smiled and stretched out his hand. Okay, please." A dozen people who were having a small meeting left one after another. Aurelius was followed closely by Nagini who came with him. In the meeting just now, Nagini seemed very silent, not only because it was not convenient to speak, but also because she was thinking about something. "What are you thinking about?" Aurelius looked at her and asked with a smile. "Ha. Do you think it's incredible? I didn't expect that the Aurelius I met was actually an ambitious man." Aurelius looked at her with a smile. Nagini couldn't laugh it off, she felt that Aurelius just now was a bit strange. He was usually very quiet, always holding a magic book to study magic, but just now, the way he was so energetic and giving guidance to Fang Chu was completely different from how he usually was. I don't think you should be a careerist, Nagini whispered. Aurelius was happy. Then I really thank you, but this is really wrong. He stopped, and Nagini stopped too. Facing Grindelwald's questioning gaze, Aurelius motioned for him to come over later, and Grindelwald and others no longer waited for him. Actually, I have always been ambitious. I don't like this magical world. Aurelius leaned against the cold wall and said quietly. Nagini said nothing because she actually didn't like it either. The magical world brought her and them only pain. I am different from you, Nagini. You are very kind. Even if magic has caused you deep harm again and again, you have never thought of harming the magic world. Aurelius helped her lovingly, lifting her hair covering her eyes. She said, but I'm different. I'm not that generous. So you want to be with Grindelwald and destroy the magic rules? Nagini felt incredible. Shesh. Aurelius smiled and shook his head. I am not trying to destroy the magical world, but to create a new magical world. Nagini was at a loss. Create. This magical world is rotten. It will only bring us pain, but it is a fact that we live in magic, which means we are not allowed to live in this world. Aurelius rarely told others his true feelings. Being sick actually made him a little gloomy, but now, he can guarantee that he is telling the truth, at least, part of the truth. I don't want to stay in the magical world, but I can't stay in the secular world. My dear, where do you think we can go? Aurelius hugged Nagini naturally and let her listen to his heartbeat. It's a little secret. Nagini has sensitive sensing abilities, including heartbeats. Through heartbeat, she can even determine whether a person is suspected of lying. But this time, she had no intention of listening. Why do we have to stay in which world? We just need to find a place with beautiful scenery and build a small house. Ha! Don't be stupid, my girl. Aurelius interrupted her and said seriously, we are wizards, a higher level, we are humans are social beings, no one can. It is unrealistic to be isolated from the world and not communicate with anyone for a lifetime, which is also the origin of the magical world in the secular world. The most important thing is that I have the ability. Aurelius stretched out his palm, the raging black mist and fierce fire intertwined, and his eyes were a bit blurry. Look at how beautiful it is. Beautiful but deadly. Fire destroys rather than creates. You were wrong. Destruction and creation are subjective behaviors, not an objective description. Aurelius withdrew his fire and smiled. Killing a life with a knife is destruction, right? But it can also carve out the most beautiful dishes in the world, which is creation again. Don't be fooled by those things. See your heart clearly. I have powerful magic powers, which will become more and more powerful in the future. Although these powers are born from pain, they can also serve beauty. Aurelius looked at her. This world is not normal. It is sick. Some people are addicted to sick comfort, but more people are suffering. It has been sick for so long that everyone takes it for granted. Nagini. Think about how a normal person should live. Nagini frowned and thought. Her experience made her think about this problem countless times, but she always thought about it in vain, because people can't imagine things they haven't seen. From the moment he is born, he has parents and a family. This family may be rich, may be wealthy, or may barely have enough food and clothing. He will spend a wonderful childhood in the pampering of his parents. Until he is 6 or 7 years old, he will think of the naive tiger cub and begin to learn future survival skills while playing. Primary school or primary education school will send him comprehensive books. He will be the same as his peers. The children go to school together, with teachers and classmates, and they will learn superficial magic knowledge and all kinds of novel things. The educational and entertaining primary school time will come to an end in the summer when they are 12 years old. Their magical power has stabilized and they need more systematic training. The Maholis Mystery Center from the Caribbean will become their new place of living and learning, where they will receive up to 7 years of study, providing a solid foundation for their future path to magic. This will be a time that they don't like, but they can't help but smile when they think back to it. At the age of 19, they have graduated, but this is still the beginning. Some of them will go out of campus, and their figures will appear in every corner of the magical world, either taking risks, working, or being single in a chic way. Travel around the world alone, or form a new family with a loved one. On the other hand, they will get further education. Learning is no longer the keynote of their lives. They will receive the most cutting-edge magical information, and they will work independently or cooperatively. Let's explore the mysteries of magic together. The birth of every new magic achievement will add luster to the world. The entire magical world will become a sophisticated machine, constantly operating to bring the entire wizarding community to a higher position. You said that you don't agree with Grindelwald's claims. Nagini longed for the life described by Aurelius. Even going to school, which was the most troublesome thing for countless students, was out of reach for her. Aurelius nodded. Yes, I don't agree with his idea of using wizards to rule muggles. In my eyes, this is a step back, not progress. Think about it. What can wizards do? What can muggles do? Aurelius inspired her. After thinking for a while, Nagini shook her head. She was a little confused. In her eyes, wizards seemed to be omnipotent, but muggles were unfamiliar to her. Magic, wizards have magic, but muggles don't, that's the difference, Aurelius said. That's it. Nagini wondered. Humanity's transformation from eating hair and drinking blood to today's splendid magical civilization and the splendid industrial civilization of muggles actually relies on two things, wisdom and magic. Wizards possess both wisdom and magic, but there are too few wizards, and muggles have a huge population, but do not have the ability to cast spells. This results in muggles being able to specialize in studying the substances and phenomena of the world. Aurelius sighed. Actually, what I want to do has been done by many people. What is it? Do you know how little wizards go to Hogwarts? I went to England when I was in the circus, and they took a train called the Hogwarts Express. Look, this is what I want to do. Aurelius Little Bear spread his hands. The wisdom of muggles becomes more powerful based on their huge numbers, and magic can do many things that muggles cannot currently do. If a wizard borrowing muggle wisdom. Nagini understood that Aurelius also wanted to challenge the law of secrecy. He wanted to integrate muggles and wizards, but his attitude was more moderate than Grindelwald's radical approach. Only, didn't you say that this would cause problems? Wizards can learn muggle knowledge, but muggles can never become wizards. No, I already have a solution to this problem. Aurelius smiled mysteriously. The legacy of the War College. There is indeed a certain threshold for the summoner's inheritance. Not everyone has the opportunity to become a summoner. But compared to wizards, whose extraordinary power relies solely on blood inheritance, the summoner's inheritance gives everyone equal opportunities. Even this equality comes from innateness. This innate need is not bloodline, and there is no possibility of inheritance. At least based on Valoran's years of research and exploration, there is no law of summoner inheritance. This is relatively fair. And for those people who are unable to become summoners, the extraordinary door does not completely shut them out. Hero. This is another extraordinary path, although it is difficult. The summoner's road is relatively smooth, but the hero's road is full of thorns. But once you become a hero, the treatment is unmatched by summoners, and you will become the target of countless summoners, hoping to be allowed to use the power of heroes. Fairness gives wizards and muggles the same possibility of becoming extraordinary. This is what Aurelius relies on to realize his shocking ambition. After comforting Nagini, Aurelius also realized the difficulties he was facing. People's hearts are unpredictable, and no one can be sure that their thoughts are the same as those of others. On the journey to realize his dream of a new extraordinary world, he cannot walk alone, he needs companions. How to gather these fellow travelers around him will become Aurelius' biggest problem. She is just a Nagini, but she has been with her for a long time. Nagini who loves herself has a long way to go if she wants to change her mind. Rue Montmorency, House of Nicolema. Nicolema's eyes were closed peacefully, and he was lying leisurely on the rocking chair. 600 years have made him accustomed to the slow passing of worthless time. He likes to use this kind of relaxation to kill his seemingly endless years. The strange noise woke up Nicolema. His eyes were dim, but he was not confused. The decay of his body cannot cover up the wisdom given to him by his time. It's a crystal ball. The pure crystal ball of prophecy is now in chaos. The gathering dark clouds seemed like the sky was falling, and the streaks of lightning added a bit of a scene on the eve of destruction to the surging dark clouds. Ah, bad. Nicolema whispered to himself in a hoarse and slow tone. He struggled to get up, fearing that a big move would break his bones. In the crystal ball, Grindelwald's face appeared, right in Paris, just about 3 blocks away. Countless residual images of phantoms filled the entire screen. Those are Nicolema carefully identified it, and in an instant, he saw the person who used apparition. Those were no ordinary wizards. They wore strange costumes and had long braids. A group of people with whom Aurelius had discussed not long ago came to mind, shamans. Shaman. Why did the shaman from the Far East get involved with Grindelwald? Nicholas Flamel was full of surprise. A group of people who shouldn't have appeared are definitely not good news. Compared with Grindelwald's magic eye, Nicholas Flamel's crystal ball looks better, but in fact, the two are about the same. Grindelwald can only see a small fragment, which can be reproduced through a snuff bottle. Nicolema seemed to be able to see the overall situation more intuitively, but he seemed to be driving at 5 times speed, just looking at things at a glance, and it was difficult to collect all the information. The tomb of Père Lachaise. Nicolema thought of a place not far from the prophesied location. The two are next to each other. Nicholas Flamel could hardly convince himself that this would be a long time coming. Tonight is the gathering of the Umno party, and this scene may very well happen tonight. There is no doubt that this is a big war. Each shaman seemed to be completing some mysterious ritual using phantom. Grindelwald waved the wand in his hand frequently, but it was this move that made Nicholas Flamel's drooped eyelids move. He seemed a little stunned, but soon he showed a smile. Cunning guy. In the dark night, a huge crow covers the sky and the moon, and the bustling Paris seems to be trembling in the flesh under its mouth. Crow. The symbol of the Lestrange family. Images of the protagonists flashed by, including Grindelwald, Aurelius, Nagini, Newt, Lita, Tina, Queenie, Yusuf, McGonagall, Aberforth. They seemed to be doing their own thing, but these seemingly unrelated things ended up forming a big network. As the crystal ball flickered dimly for a few times like a dead light bulb, there was no movement at all. Nicolema rubbed his head. The complexity of the matter was a bit beyond his expectation. Nicolema's prophecy is very special. It not only allows us to see a fragment of the future, but also carries some kind of revelation and meaning. Those pictures are what will appear in the future, but they also have their own meanings. Only pictures that have both future occurrence and symbolic meaning can he predict, not just look at it. For example, the huge crow seems to be an unknown black magic, but it also represents the Lestrange family. This indicates that the Lestrange family will be an extremely important part and even the cause of the predicted war. The Lestrange family. Nicolema frowned and thought for a while, then shook his head. Too long ago. For this family, Nicolema's impression of the people and things happened hundreds of years ago, and it should not be delayed until hundreds of years later, leading to tonight's war. The heir of the Lestrange family. It seems to be that girl. Nicolema murmured to himself. No, no, no. Nicholas Flamel hurriedly walked to a dusty corner with his small steps. His fingers moved like playing a piano. In the dust, an exquisite invitation flew out from the inside and gently unfolded in front of him. Before. 2. Dear Mr. Nicolema. The Lestrange family will hold a birthday dinner for Cobos Lestrange on the evening of June 9, 1904. At that time, your presence will make the entire Lestrange family shine. Cobos Lestrange. Nicolema stared at the name, his fragile fingers gently leaving a notch on the old invitation. The invitation is here, but of course he didn't go. He receives countless such invitations every year. If he goes to every one of them, he will not be able to enjoy his retirement life. But this invitation letter from the Lestrange family became a revelation for Nicolema to explore the truth of the prophecy. One thing is that Nicholas Flamel is the director of Beauxbatons, a French magic school. Every year during the admissions season, as a director, Nicholas Flamel will receive a routine admission list of new students. Let me think about it. Just as Nicolema recalled where he had thrown the list, a dusty letter flew out from a place like a garbage dump. Oh, thank you. Nicolema caught it, said it to someone unknown, opened the envelope, and saw the list of 1915. No, this name. Nicolema was not surprised. In fact, he thought this was normal. The only heir of the French Lestrange family was not able to enter school on time when he was 11 years old. There is no other possibility. As long as he is a French wizard, no one will refuse Beauxbatons, unless the child is not a wizard, or dead. He might want to inform his old friends. He didn't need a prophecy to figure out that something big would happen tonight, which would definitely cause huge casualties. This is what Nicholas Flamel did not want to see. He has experienced too much in his life, and now he has no intention of getting involved in any debate of ideas or the drama of the confrontation between good and evil. Changes are always happening, but avoidable casualties must be avoided. This is his idea and the request of an old friend. Cobos Lestrange must play a special role in this drama, but what role is it? Nicolema didn't know that this was not something that prophecy could solve. Every time he peeked into the future, it would bring more unsolved mysteries. I can only help you so far, Albus. Nicolema sighed. The legendary wizard Nicolema, who is more than 600 years old, can escape the invitation of death, but cannot bear the erosion of time. Call the noise outside the window made Nicolema look over. Lines of black gauze came out of nowhere, covering the entire sky, swaying and floating, as if they were going to cover the entire Paris. Everyone, including the Muggles, were shocked. This sudden incident beyond their imagination has made many people's hearts throb. Overwhelming. No one knows what happened. Some curious children even jumped up and grabbed the black veil, but when the black veil fell to the ground, it disappeared silently, as if it was just an illusion. Nicolema looked solemn. It's begun. Obviously, this is Grindelwald's handiwork, and he is gathering his followers. Grindelwald is gathering his followers. Every wizard who witnessed the Paris vision knew it well. Grindelwald's appeal is not a secret. The most terrifying dark wizard in history is making waves in Europe in order to dominate the wizarding world, overthrow the International Federation of Wizards' secrecy that has protected the wizarding community for hundreds of years, and establish a master-controlled new world led by a wizard with extraordinary power. For many years, the Wiccan Party has caused chaos and even terrorist actions around the world, with only one purpose: to expose the wizarding world to all Muggles. By forcing wizards to go to war with Muggles, Grindelwald, who firmly believes that wizards will win, has achieved his goal. But as his actions were thwarted by the Ministry of Magic of various countries time and time again, he ran out of patience. Grindelwald kept no secrets about tonight's gathering, which is not a good sign. This is an ultimatum. The French Ministry of Magic, British and French order leaders gathered here. Where's Dumbledore? Is he going to make a move? Travers roared. Dumbledore refused to take action. He couldn't fight Grindelwald. These were his exact words. An Auror lowered his head and said, "What the hell?" Travers threw the pen to the ground. "We have no time." French Minister of Magic Derricks leaned on his chair and shook his silk gently. Travers said viciously, "Even if I burn the tomb of Père Lachaise to the ground, I will kill Grindelwald and his gang in one fell swoop." Ah. I don't know how many of the people present laughed in their hearts, but you still want to catch them all? If you can do it, you don't have to wait until today. How is the situation at the scene? Are the Aurors in place? Watch your attitude, Mr. Travers. This is the French Ministry of Magic. Derricks was somewhat dissatisfied with Travers' tone and said firmly, "There are more than 10,000 wizards gathered there tonight, all from all over the world. Wizarding families everywhere. What do you want to do?" "Let me tell you, Travers, even if Grindelwald is let go, I will never agree to your crazy plan. What you are doing is massacre. You will only destroy the whole world. The wizard pushes Grindelwald." Travers was silent for a while, but then he raised his head and spoke the coldest words. "If Grindelwald is dead, who can they push to?" Bang. Derricks slapped the table hard and jumped up, staring at Travers. "You madman. Do you know what you were talking about?" "Of course. The plan is almost, kick him out. Send him back. Damn it. Why are we cooperating with a lunatic?" Derricks spat angrily. After hearing this, several Aurors came up to restrain Travers and pulled him out. Several British Aurors were at a loss and didn't know what to do. What a farce. The enemy is currently facing internal strife. "Theseus, what should we do?" Several Aurors looked at the silent Theseus. As the director of the Auror office, Theseus now became the backbone of these Aurors. In fact, according to the original plan, Theseus should now appear at the tomb of Père Lachaise, but Travers banned him on the grounds that he was suspected of treason. It is impossible to remove him from his position, but he can still be placed under house arrest. Theseus is not stupid. This is a mess now. How can he get involved? "Don't ask me, I'm suspended." Theseus was immediately defeated. As the director of the Auror office, no matter what Hughes did, he could not escape the fate of taking the blame. Anyway, the blame is set, so it's better to let it go. Theseus's failure is now a good thing for the chaotic Ministry of Magic. Travers was expelled, and now the sound of angry roars echoed in the corridor outside. As guests, when the British Aurors are leaderless, they can only do as they please. This actually made the originally chaotic command system a lot more coordinated. At least, they had a clear commander. "Where's Yosef? Where did this guy go?" Minister Derricks asked. Several French Aurors looked at each other, but no one made a sound. Not only did the British Aurors lose their leader, they also lost their leader. Since 2 days ago, Yusuf Kama has lost news. "The boss of my family has always been mysterious, coming and going without a trace, but he was not here on this occasion today, which is really a bit inappropriate." "Where is Yusuf Kama?" "Tomb of Père Lachaise. The awakened Yosef is taken to the Lestrange family cemetery by Rita." "You don't know it all, you don't know anything." Rita helped Yusuf to the ground and leaned against the stone cabinet. "I don't know." "What don't I know?" I have been investigating the Lestrange family for more than 10 years. I know everything that the Lestrange family doesn't know. Lita, my little sister. Yusuf was stubborn, and Rita didn't want to have such a verbal dispute with him at all, so she waved her magic wand, flying family tree. A heavy box hidden in the corner of the mausoleum suddenly crashed towards her from the dust. There was a series of clicking sounds, the gears whirred, the code was cracked, and the box bounced open and spread out into a metal plate. Her fingers gently groped on it, and Rita's eyes welled up with tears, and they fell down. This is the deepest pain in her heart. It is the most terrifying memory in her life. But she had to lift it herself. Several gentlemen will be arriving soon to eliminate all irrelevant personnel except Father Lachaise. Abernethy conveyed the order on behalf of Grindelwald. A large number of Wu Kui party members left in batches from the entrances and exits around the venue in an orderly manner. The quality of Jinshan shaman was seen by them, and they did not want to make their leader feel embarrassed. Follow me. Sitting in the crowd, Queenie, who was a little uneasy, suddenly heard a familiar voice. Abernethy. Queenie recognized this Maca employee who had had some intentions towards her at a glance. The noisy environment around her affected Queenie's legilimency. She had never trained her legilimency, which resulted in her always passively acquiring other people's memories. When facing a large crowd, if she still uses legilimency, it will only burst her brain. Out of physical self-protection, Queenie stopped reading memories once she faced too many people. Abernethy also saw Queenie. His eyes were a little complicated. He did not communicate with Queenie, but pretended not to see her and led the people out. To this day, Abernethy's defection remains a secret in the MAC, although he and Grindelwald have never concealed it. Rudolph placed the blame on Abernethy's defection from the Magic Congress, but Chairman Pickery of the Magic Congress obviously couldn't recognize him, so it became a matter of course that Abernethy was deliberately obscured and hidden. Queenie obviously didn't know about these upper-level rivalries. Queenie bit her lip, her big eyes full of doubts, stood up and followed quietly. My brother, Corvus Lestrange, is dead. I killed him. Following Rita's painful scream, Abernethy paused. His forked tongue couldn't help but slip out of his mouth. The members of the Wu Kui party behind him were about to take action, but he raised his hand to stop them. Go somewhere else. Leave it alone, Abernethy ordered. Both Vita and Crow looked down upon Abernethy, but obviously not these lower-level members of the Nazi party. Abernethy saved Grindelwald, and this was his saving grace. Yes. The members of the Wu Kui party responded and scattered in all directions. You're here. Abernethy didn't look back. He had grown a lot after following Grindelwald. Especially that tongue, which gave him a powerful sense of smell in addition to his natural sense of smell. It's hard for others to tell, but Queenie's tracking skills, which are not even second-rate, can't be hidden from him. You have changed so much. Queenie hesitated to speak. It's always going to change. Now that we're here, let's listen to the story together. Abernethy chuckled, looking at Queenie with complicated eyes. This was his favorite girl. Are you looking for your origin? Are you willing to take refuge in Grindelwald for this? Queenie couldn't hold back and asked. Aren't you the same? You showed up here for a muggle. Abernethy grinned and his long tongue slipped out. Facing Queenie's complicated expression, she laughed at herself. It's ugly, isn't it? No, I just can't imagine how painful it would be to have your tongue removed. It hurt so much that I almost couldn't hold on. Abernethy shared with Queenie easily. They used steel rods to pry open my mouth and clamped my tongue with pliers. Is it worth it? To find someone you've never met? Then are you worth it? For a fat, ugly muggle? Queenie was speechless and shook her head. Maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not worth it. But you are better than me. You see hope, but I can only see one star. Hope? Where is the hope? You smell a smell. Queenie said, it's familiar, right? Abernethy frowned. It seems that Mr. Grindelwald is right, your legilimency is scary. Yeah. Legilimency sounds annoying. No one likes to expose their memories to the outside all the time and be looked at casually. Queenie rubbed her head, showing a distressed expression, but he quickly smiled and said to Abernethy. But maybe this time it's a good thing. A good thing? As someone whose memory is being reviewed, I don't think so, Abernethy said. No, it's a good thing. Human memory is really a magical thing. Maybe what we think we have forgotten or lost is actually lying in a corner. Queenie smiled mysteriously and pointed with her finger. Pointing to the inside. I found it for you, it's inside. It's not like you need to remind me that I have a nose. No, I mean, before that shipwreck, That smell was always very close to you, very close. Abernethy was struck by lightning. Okay. Let's listen to a story together. I like to hear stories. Queenie winked playfully and said nothing. Separated by a wall. Rita, who was fumbling with the metal plate, said in ecstasy. Few people know that the Lestrange family has a magical family tree. Listening to Lita's chattering voice, the big golden fruit tree gradually came to life, and the saplings gradually grew. As if the flow of time had been sped up, the small saplings soon began to bloom and become stronger and stronger. Only men are recorded on it, and women in the family are marked as flowers. But what is surprising is that the rocks and thick branches grow not leaves, but coats of arms with human figures. 10 pink and white flowers decorate the whole tree. The tree is still growing, new characters and flowers are constantly spreading, and characters and flowers are constantly withering. This is a family tree, with blood as its branches, telling the history of the Lestrange family through the ages, and Lita is also peeling off her dusty heart and telling her past about her own mother. Father's brother. Aurelius, who was about to enter the venue with Sotrallo and waiting to watch Grindelwald's performance, suddenly felt Queenie's call. He escaped with the mirror he carried with him. The mirror was dark and he couldn't see anything. It couldn't be that Queenie made the wrong call, right? Aurelius listened carefully, and there was a subtle female voice telling a story from a long time ago. What's wrong? Mr. Dumbledore. Grindelwald noticed and came over to ask. Aurelius raised his head slightly. The Lestrange family, are they of use to you? What? Grindelwald was a little confused. I remember that the Lestrange family tree should be in the French Ministry of Magic, Aurelius said. Grindelwald was a little surprised. You actually know this? I am increasingly doubting whether you have vision like me. Aurelius chuckled. If he had to say that, that's fine. But his prediction of the future was not a prophetic vision, it was just because he had seen the movie. The Magic series is a mess, and even some fans are confused at first glance. But as luck would have it, Aurelius was doing nothing in his hospital bed, thinking over and over again, so he had a deep impression. Why did Rita come to the tomb of Père Lachaise? Because she couldn't find the family tree she wanted in the French Ministry of Magic, but someone left a message asking her to come here. Why look for a family tree? Because the rumor that Credence is Cobos Lestrange is widely known. She just wanted to prove that this was a rumor and there was no need to spend any effort on Credence. So, here comes the fun part. Who took away the Lestrange family tree, and who left a message asking Rita to come to Père Lachaise's tomb at such a critical time? Don't know, but you can try. I heard the rumors, and of course I asked for confirmation. Grindelwald did not answer directly, but he had actually admitted it. The person who took away the family tree was Grindelwald, or someone from the Wiccan party. At the very least, it had to be Grindelmore's subordinates. Aurelius smiled, he understood. Everything is Grindelwald's layout. Step by step, he induced every key person to come to the tomb of Père Lachaise, in order to take away Credence, in order to take away Queenie, in order to announce his return. He used Credence's pursuit of his own life experience to lure him step by step to the tomb of Père Lachaise, destroying the life experience he originally believed in to make himself the only clue to Credence. Compared with his previous deception of children in New York, this scheme targeting people's desires is much more clever. Credence mistakenly believed the rumors and thought he was Cobos Lestrange. Grindelwald may have thought so at first, but he knew better. He thought of the Lestrange family tree, and he could immediately know the answer just by looking at the family tree. As a result, of course what he saw was the withered Corvus Lestrange. Grindelwald doesn't care at all whether Credence is Cobos Lestrange, because it doesn't matter at all. On the contrary, the withered Corvus made Grindelwald even more excited. Family background is Credence's obsession. He doesn't have long to live. He longs to find his family and know who he is. The family tree proves that Credence is not Cobos Lestrange, so Grindelwald becomes his last hope. Although he is not, he can make himself be. This is the most critical starting point in the entire story of the second part of the magical series. The so-called Lestrange family is just a cover. It is impossible for Grindelwald to directly tell Credence that he is not Corvus, and Credence would not believe it if he told him. People are always willing to believe their own eyes, so Grindelwald brought all the key figures together step by step, allowing Credence to witness the truth with his own eyes, because it is the truth. Grimson, who was hired by the British Ministry of Magic but was actually loyal to Grindelwald, took action to kill Irma, who Credence mistakenly thought was his grandmother but was actually the nanny. Credence then turned against the British Ministry of Magic, and even all the Ministry of Magic and Aurors become hostile and wary, and at the same time have a firm belief in seeking their origins. Then Grindelwald appeared and told Credence clearly in everything but words, "I know your life experience, but if you don't believe me, I'll find out for myself." At the tomb of Père Lachaise, Rita and Joseph Karma were inadvertently forced to become Grindelwald's assistants, creating conflicts within the unbreakable vow, and using Rita's guilt to make them step by step. The truth is revealed in front of Credence, destroying the home Credence has been searching for nearly a year. And at this time, Grindelwald made a brilliant appearance. The previous guidance laid the groundwork for Credence to regard Grindelwald as the only clue to his search for his life experience. For this reason, he had to sacrifice his life to Grindelwald. Grindelwald's purpose was thus achieved. As for Queenie's surrender and Rita's death, these are all side issues and are completely pushed along. And all of this, step by step, leads Credence into the abyss, perhaps the puzzling crimes of Grindelwald. But these are all secrets in the movie, and the reality has long been changed beyond recognition. Aurelius fully believed that when Grindelwald found Europe, he did not think of the uproar of equating Dumbledore with Credence. The rumored news that there is an Obscurial in the Lestrange family naturally has no market due to the drastic changes in the New York incident. Only a small number of people will know and believe it. In this case, would Grindelwald still believe it? Is it still necessary to check the Lestrange family's genealogy? Even if you check it out, is it still necessary to take it away and lead Rita to the tomb of Père Lachaise? Not me? Aurelius squinted his eyes and thought for a moment. The Aurelius of this world knew from the beginning that his surname was Dumbledore. Even if he didn't know it, he had no sense of belonging to this world, let alone a family that jumped out of nowhere. He has even met his cheap uncle and is unwilling to get involved, which shows that he really has no intention of finding a relative. Grindelwald had no motivation at all to find out the Lestrange family tree. But he did it anyway. Grindelwald admits to looking up the Lestrange family tree. Aurelius pondered for a moment. He felt that Grindelwald was not that candid and there were some things he did not say. This is normal, Aurelius didn't either. Just use yourself to save others. Since Grindelwald didn't say anything, Aurelius wouldn't reveal it. Mr. Grindelwald, I look forward to your performance. Thank you, Mr. Dumbledore. Lifting his legs and going out from the side door, he was going to his place, with Nagini following closely behind. Seeing Aurelius leave, Sohoro also said to his shaman, "Let's go to VIP room. It is still the same room where I rested when I came here. The huge circular funnel-shaped venue can be seen from here, and it has the best view." Nagini was preoccupied, but Aurelius held the mirror and listened to the story. That was a story he had known for a long time, but he had a hunch that there might be a different plot. "You are hunting down the Lestrange family." Lita's voice was very soft. "After all, we were separated by a wall. Father asked me and little Kobos to go to the United States together, and Irma pretended to be the ancestor of both of us." Rita said with a faint choked voice. "That night, little Kobos kept crying and crying. I swear, I didn't mean to hurt him, I just wanted to get rid of him temporarily. Just a little while. There was an accident on the ship. I don't know what happened now. But the adults were all panicked. I saw a baby and I exchanged them. I naively thought this would allow me to enjoy it for a while. Peaceful." Queenie saw Abernathy's hand beside her and couldn't help but clenched it into a fist, and the veins on her neck popped out. "What's up with him?" Queenie remained calm and subconsciously wanted to take a closer look, but was frightened by Abernathy's terrifying eyes. "No, don't peek into my brain, at least this time, okay?" The words were polite, but the tone was not polite. Obviously this was not a discussion. Okay. Irma found me and she was so anxious that she took me on the boat with the others. She didn't notice that the baby had been changed, and neither did the woman." Rita smiled sadly. "I realized something might be wrong, but I was afraid and didn't dare to say it. I was taken on the boat by Irma, and watched helplessly as the woman hugged my brother. Kobos got on another boat. The wind and waves were very big. I was very scared. A wave, no, a huge wave. The water rushed into the boat. I was choked badly, but I saw another boat, which was sitting on the boat that Kobos and the woman were in, was overturned." Rita choked up and her words were broken, but the content of her words made Yusuf in the room and Abernathy outside the wall breathe quickly. "I watched helplessly. The swaddling clothes wrapped in Kobos sank into the sea, and I watched the woman pursue Kobos, and never surfaced again." "He's dead?" Yusuf's eyes widened. My vows were completed 11 or 20 years ago." Yusuf stared at the withering coat of arms representing Corvus Lestrange on the family tree. 22. "Are you happy? Should I be happy?" Yusuf looked up blankly. But why doesn't he have any of these emotions? What have you been doing these past few decades? 2 lines of clear tears slid down the dark skin. This is not for Kobos, who has been dead for 20 years, but for himself who has been idle for 20 years. Merlin's torn pants. What on earth have I done in the past 20 years? So? Queenie outside the wall had questions all over her head. She couldn't help but turn her head to look at Aber-Bingshi. Guessed wrong? Abernathy not Kobos Lestrange? Impossible. Queenie was puzzled. She clearly saw Abernathy's familiarity with Rita's scent in his subconscious. Did you miss something? Queenie's curiosity was extremely strong, but remembering Abernathy's warning just now, she ultimately did not take action. Queenie's exploration of memory is not comprehensive, but she consciously manipulates it. But Abernathy was not calm inside. His eyes were closed tightly and his breathing was rapid. If you want to find one person among all people who knows the truth, probably no one knows it better than him. More than 20 years ago, the couple from an African pure-blood family became the starting point of all these things. The head of the Lestrange family is Kobos Lestrange IV. He is a cold-blooded and selfish man who will do anything for the continuation of the Lestrange family. Yosef Kamal's mother, Lorene Kamal, is famous for her black pearls in France. Of course, it would be nonsense to say how beautiful it is, but for a wizard family, pure bloodline is undoubtedly more precious. It's a perfect fertility machine, even if it may be secondhand. Kobos IV didn't care. With a soul-stealing curse, he easily let his wife and mother get into his car in front of the father and son. The father and son, who had lost their wife and mother, were distraught and vowed to take revenge. Before his death, Kama Lao forced his son to make an unbreakable vow to retaliate by killing the love of Kobos IV. Just this behavior, just pinch your nose and believe it. A year later, Rita was born, and Lorena Karma, who had been controlled by the spirit for a year, died of childbirth. Yosef considered killing his half-sister, but found that the cold-blooded Corvos IV was indifferent to his sister. Why? Now he knows, because in the Lestrange family, women are not qualified to have their names recorded. Even after just 3 months, Lorena, who failed to continue the Lestrange family, was left behind. Kobos IV happily found the next fertility machine, his aunt and cousin, Clarice Tremblay. This time, Corvos IV welcomed his true love, his only son Corvos Lestrange versus that is, Little Kobos. However, Yosef's secret lurking and opportunistic actions failed to escape the notice of Kobos IV. For the safety of Little Kobos, Kobos IV made a decision. To hire the servant Hool elf Irma Dugard brought Little Kobos to the United States, and Lita was also taken away. Afterwards, in order to get rid of the distressed Little Kobos, Rita exchanged babies, and then a shipwreck occurred. The exchanged Little Kobos sank into the sea, and Rita, who was afraid of this, chose to hide it. Irma, who knew nothing about it, followed the owner's instructions and handed the baby to Biban in the New York orphanage. In other words, Rita was Aurelius's savior. Without her exchange, it would have been Aurelius who sank into the sea. Let's not mention the Aurelius line for the moment, which is something Abernathy didn't know. In his cognition, he was rejected by his sister because of his distress, exchanged with her, and eventually sank into the sea. But his life should not be cut off. The mermaid siren in the Atlantic Ocean rescued him, and the mermaid's kiss gave him the ability to move freely in the ocean like a mermaid. And this ability helped him regain Grindelwald's most cherished medicine bottle in the carriage on the day he rescued Grindelwald. He was raised by mermaids, but not with love. He was sent to Ilvermorny, grew up and finally entered the Magical Congress in order to be a spy and, if necessary, to promote an alliance between the mermaids in the Magical Congress of Magnesia. The grace of life-saving and nurturing made a Bo Bingshi work for Mermaid Hanshin for many years. But Abernathy's appeal failed to wait until he met Grindelwald, who made Abernathy make the decision to join Grindelwald. Perhaps the initial surrender was in exchange for benefits. He used his surrender in exchange for Grindelwald to help him find his life experience. But as time went by, Abernathy truly became a true believer in Grindelwald. No one can deny Grindelwald's personal charm. Abernathy. Where are you going? Queenie asked anxiously when she saw Abernathy walking away. Don't follow me, I have to do something. Abernathy left a word and left. Queenie, come back. From the pocket, Aurelius's voice sounded, calling Queenie Goldstein. It turns out it's him. Aurelius cut off contact and muttered with narrowed eyes. What have you found? Aurelius did not respond to Nagini's question. He had a huge question. Abernathy had a name in the original plot, He was just a minor supporting character, and there was no place for him in the 1 or 2 hours. But judging from various performances, in this world, Abernathy seems to have the same fate as himself, 2 children living abroad. It doesn't sound unreasonable, but there is a problem. In the plot, it is clearly shown that the coat of arms representing Kobo's V in the Lestrange's family tree has withered. This is obviously the best proof that little Kobo's is dead. So, where did Abernathy come from? Little Kobo's is dead, but Abernathy is still alive. Is he really little Kobo's? If so, why did the coat of arms of Kobo's the younger decay? If not, then who is he? There is no third child on that ship. This is not an unimportant question, but rather a critical one. If Abernathy is little Kobo's, then he can replace Lita as the heir of the Lestrange family. This is about the inheritance system of European pure-blood wizard families. The first heir is the eldest son, followed by the second son and other sons, then the wife, and then the daughter. This is especially true for extreme purebloods like the Lestrange family. As far as Aurelius knew, although Kobo's IV, the current head of the Lestrange family, was still alive, he was no different from dead. He was already terminally ill. If there was no choice left, Lita would never be the heir. Once Kobo's V, the lost son, appears, with Kobo's For's cold-blooded and indifferent temperament, there will be no accident at all. Lita will definitely be deprived of her right to inherit. It doesn't really matter up to this point. Aurelius doesn't care about the inheritance of a French family, but the focus is on Abernathy. The complexity of this person's identity will make things unpredictable. First of all, he is the heir to the Lestrange family and will soon take over. But he has no foundation, and it is not easy to secure this position. At least Rita couldn't just sit there and die. Rita didn't like this younger brother, she just felt guilty about killing him for many years. Once Kobo's was not dead, this guilt would disappear and the family would also be able to get it. Will Rita be willing to do it? On the other hand, Abernathy must have hated Lita, because it was Lita who kept him homeless and unable to return home for 20 years. What's worse is that they can judge their own thoughts but cannot know the others. Conflict between siblings over inheritance will become inevitable. The feud within the family will have far-reaching consequences as the Lestrange family's position in France grows. The 2 siblings taking sides with Dumbledore and Grindelwald respectively will also make the Lestrange family confused. Needless to say, the status of the Lestrange family in France is a pure-blooded aristocratic family that dares to show off its Tauren and yet leaves its victims with no way to complain, which shows its background. Such a pure-blood family's position is something that neither Grindelwald nor Dumbledore can ignore. This may be the reason why Grindelwald helped Abernathy arrange everything today. Of course, it may also be the case. Secondly, Abernathy was raised by an Atlantic mermaid siren, which was revealed by Tina in Siren City. He even used the mermaid kiss, a special ability only possessed by the siren royal family. How the sirens respond to his betrayal is related to Aurelius' Caribbean strategy. Finally, Abernathy was also a member of the Umbra Party and an employee of the Magical Congress of the United States of America. It's hard not to think about it, but when you think about it carefully, this humble Abernathy actually has so many identities. And the gathering of these identities on him can cause entanglements among all parties. Hey! _WI almost overlooked such a chess piece. Aurelius immediately thought about whether such a complicated person would be useful to him. The situation is obvious now. Among the important people on the scene, Tina and Newt are good people, Dumbledore is on the sidelines, Lita, Theseus and Newt have complicated relationships, but they have basic preferences. Yosef and Kobo's verses are not on the same side. Abernathy is the Iron Wolf, but the Big Wolf and the Little Wolf are still open to debate because Aurelius is not willing to leave Abernathy and wait for Kobo's versus clothes. Nagini and Queenie both share the same side with him, but they are not wolves. Strictly speaking, Aurelius defines himself as a third party, a ghost bride who walks alone and struggles to win. He must ensure that Grindelwald and Dumbledore are in a stalemate. Tonight is the key, he must ensure that the losses of both sides are equal, so as to buy more time for himself. Regardless of whether it is based on the plot or the tripartite strategy I talked about today, as long as they pass today, they will have at least a few years of stability. Tonight is the key. At this moment, the lights suddenly dimmed, and the noisy crowd suddenly burst into enthusiastic cheers. With the light even brighter than before, the elegant Grindelwald slowly walked onto the central platform. The crowd was ecstatic, as if they were welcoming the gods they believed in. Here we go. Nagini said softly, "It's really exaggerated." Aurelius smiled knowingly. Standing on the center stage, Grindelwald didn't say a word, He just stood quietly. Just standing, the fanatical atmosphere of the entire venue gradually escalated. The cheers at the scene did not stop for a long time. Terrible appeal. Standing in the center of the stage, Grindelwald looks like the king of the world. Grindelwald raised his hand gently, and the venue quickly became quiet. Everyone, all the wizards, were like a well-trained army, and the entire venue was silent. My brothers, sisters, friends, your applause. This gift is not for me. No, it is for you. The magnetic voice slowly resounded across the entire stage. It seemed to be ringing in everyone's ears. His voice was not loud, but it could focus everyone's attention on him alone. You came today because of your inner desire and a concept. The old method is no longer suitable for us. Grindelwald walked slowly, looking at everyone with his strange eyes, communicating spiritually. You are here today because you are hungry for something new, something different. They all say that I hate no mice and muggles. He raised his voice slightly, and some extreme people in the audience immediately shouted. Pest roar. Grindelwald was a little unhappy. This inexplicable voice disrupted his speech. He could only raise his voice again. No mice, people who can't cast magic. I don't hate them, I don't hate them. There was an audible silence, but in the VIP room, Aurelius whispered to himself. You just think they don't deserve it. I am not fighting for hatred. I believe that muggles are not a minority group, but a different group. It is not worthless, but has a different kind of value. It cannot be disposed of freely, but should be treated specially. Grindelwald paused. For a moment, the blooming of magic will only be in a very small number of souls. It will only be allowed to things of a higher level. Oh! What kind of world we will create for all mankind. What we hope for is freedom, truth, and even more. Like. Grindelwald once again accepted people's applause and cheers, which lasted for about a minute. Grindelwald finally said what he really wanted to say. But his words were full of loopholes in the eyes of Aurelius. He made one of the most common mistakes made by Westerners: classification. Humans are human beings, wizards are human beings, and muggles are human beings. The ability to create a race of wizards and muggles is a kind of division that deliberately turns human internal conflicts into racial conflicts. Aurelius sighed. You don't agree? Nagini asked. Of course I don't agree. Wizards are not a race and should not be a race. Aurelius said softly. Wizards are a member of human beings in a profession, the same profession as chefs, drivers, and housekeepers. But, Nagini hesitated. Do you think he is right? Because muggles can never become wizards? Aurelius saw her confusion. Nagini nodded. Then let me ask you, can a blind person be a driver? Can a person with congenital taste loss be a gourmet? Can a person who is tone deaf be a singer? Aurelius asked a series of questions. Nagini shook her head repeatedly. Of course that's not possible. So, muggles can't be wizards, what's the problem? Aurelius smiled. Spellcasting ability is just one of the various talents of human beings, but it is rare. The profession of wizard only has stricter requirements on spellcasting ability. Just like a blind person who has lost his vision cannot be a driver, a large number of humans cannot become wizards because they have lost their ability to cast spells. Do you think it makes sense? Well, that seems to be the case. Nagini had to admit that she seemed to be convinced by Aurelius. Look, wizards are only a profession for people with the ability to cast spells. Why do we artificially establish wizards and muggles as two races? Do we treat blind people, color-blind people, and people who can't sing well as other races? How is it possible to do this? Yes, how could you do this? Aurelius shook his head and gave his evaluation. It's a stupid move. A feint move is a feint move, but it doesn't mean that Aurelius can't understand it. Everything happens for a reason, and everything has its own underlying reason. There is nothing new in the world. Our ancestors understood it thousands of years ago. The bustling world is all for profit, and the bustle in the world is for profit. The word profit speaks volumes about human nature. What is profit? Is it money? Is it power? Is it sex? They are all, but they are not comprehensive. The so-called profit means that subjective desires are satisfied, and the satisfaction of objective needs is called. Why would these wizards want to separate muggles and wizards into two different races? In other words, what are the benefits of doing this? All aspects. Some wizards try to enslave muggles. If muggles are excluded from wizards, then there will be no social pressure or psychological burden to enslave muggles. Not only we understand the truth of, those who are not of my race must have different minds, in this matter after dividing muggles and wizards, this sentence can be used as an excuse and is beneficial. Secondly, There are a huge number of muggles, occupying most of the world's resources, so it is natural to want to exclude dissidents. Thirdly, wizards and muggles have not been in contact for a long time due to the history of hostility in the Middle Ages, resulting in different cultures and estrangement. Wizards cannot understand the behavior of muggles, and muggles cannot understand the behavior of wizards, so conflicts naturally arise. No one is willing to admit that they are wrong. Creating racial divisions can avoid admitting mistakes, which is also a benefit. At last, it's time for everyone to take a look at the future I predicted. If we don't stand up and resist and regain our rightful position, that will be the consequences, Grindelwald said. Vita Rosier, the Black Rose of France, attended the meeting in full dress, holding a skull-shaped hookah in hand and presented it to Grindelwald. It was a tool for Grindelwald to share his vision with everyone. Grindelwald took a long breath, put the snuff bottle pipe into his mouth, and took a deep breath. He had never tried such a large range, but he had to do it today. The long inhale made him the veins on his forehead were bulging, his eyes were wide-eyed, and he didn't vomit until he was about to suffocate. Along with the billowing smoke, Grindelwald's predictions rose in the smoke. In the thick smoke, the soldiers charged with steel helmets and guns in hand. Every step of their sonorous and powerful leather boots seemed to step on the hearts of the wizards present. Boom! Huge explosions came one after another. The ruthless steel behemoth crushed everything, causing a group of spectators to scream. Among the ruins, fighter planes flying across the sky were spitting flames and destroying everything. Countless displaced people are walking on the paths in the mountains. In the end, the dazzling white light engulfed everything, and when everyone came to their senses, a terrifying mushroom cloud made everyone lose the courage to speak out. Fear, Aurelius squinted his eyes and looked at the mushroom cloud in that scene. People don't know it yet, but he knows that it is the ultimate weapon of mankind, the most terrifying weapon ever created by mankind. The source of fear is a terrifying power that wizards, even legendary wizards, cannot match, making every wizard tremble. They are afraid that one day such great power will be possessed by the wizard's ministers. That's the last reason, to eliminate fear. All eyes returned to Grindelwald. Then, what is that? Nagini was so frightened that she couldn't help but reach out and grab Aurelius' sleeve. Grindelwald's prophecy, Aurelius said calmly. There is nothing surprising. These are all things he has known for a long time. What is there to be surprised about? Then, is that true? Nagini trembled. What do you think? Aurelius asked, but he did not expect Nagini's response, but said to himself, this is why we have to do something. That's what we're fighting against. That's the enemy, their arrogance, their greed for power, their barbarism and unreasonableness. How long will it take before they turn their weapons on Tien? Please come in. Mr. Dumbledore, my tutor, Mr. Sohoro, asked me to tell you that you can leave. The shaman who came in said politely. Oh. There are quite a few people here. Aurelius chuckled. Yes, it exceeded expectations. It is imperative to lock the sky and suppress the soul. The shaman did not hide it from Aurelius. See. Okay, I understand. Aurelius nodded slightly, and the shaman resigned. Want to fight? Nagini asked. Aurelius nodded. Nagini, your strength is low now, and the battle for a while will be a bit dangerous. You. Let me escape first again? Nagini was a little reluctant. She swore that she was very serious, but she couldn't stand it for a short time. Every time she encounters danger, she always acts as a scapegoat. This is not an escape, it is a strategic retreat. I have a special status. Suo Chualua is wandering in the gray zone in the Far East, and Grindelwald is a wanted criminal marked by various countries. We are the only ones. If I hadn't been curious about this shaman's heaven-locking soul, I will also go together. Aurelius smiled. Lock the sky and calm the soul. Nagini was a little confused. Although Nagini was present at the time, Soshoro was speaking in Chinese. Aurelius could understand it, but it didn't mean that Nagini could understand it. Yes, I want to experience the mysterious Eastern magic. Is there really no danger? It's okay for dozens of Aurors to attack us. They didn't come for me this time. What can happen? Aurelius chuckled. Then. Where should I go? Take Queenie to Mr. Nico Flammel's safe house to wait for me. She's here. As soon as he finished speaking, the member of the internet party who had brought Queenie here knocked on the door. After Queenie came in, Aurelius sent a box to her without saying anything. Queenie, you and Nagini go first, Aurelius explained. Where are you going? Nagini will tell you. After sending the two men away, Aurelius stood up and watched as Grindelwald's speech gradually came to an end. Grindelwald shouted. When I say this, don't do anything. You must stay calm and control your emotions. The crowd fell silent. They were extremely anxious but full of expectations. They were waiting for the leader in front of them to give them some new and unusual revelation. There are some people with ulterior motives mixed among us. I know, I understand, but I also hope you understand that we are the same kind. We are wizards. I hope you can stand among us and get closer, magicians. Brother, join us. Grindelwald glanced at him and his tone was very provocative, but when he saw several disguised Aurors secretly clenching their wands, he said quietly, I don't expect a few words to win your hearts. But I want to say that it is true that you killed many of my followers. Even the participants are your ministers. In New York, Aurors imprisoned me and tortured me. They knocked down their fellow magicians and were punished just for telling the truth. If they want freedom, they will be killed. Grindelwald sneered. His eyes were melodious and unfocused, but he seemed to be able to accurately find every Auror hiding in the crowd. He only paused for a moment when he passed a young red-haired witch. The young man fumbled for his wand, his eyes flashing with hatred, which made the Auror who looked at her couldn't help but become nervous. The wand in his hand was trembling with anxiety. Your anger, your desire for revenge, it's natural. The inexplicable words, like the devil's temptation, stirred the young witch's heart. Angry, the witch gritted her teeth. Revenge, she raised her wand. A cold green light flashed, and the young witch fell straight down. The familiar green light made Aurelius look sideways. Very skilled. Aurors don't seem to be that useless. As a person who uses the death curse as a fluorescent flasher, no one knows how to evaluate it better than him. How could a young witch be a match for a well-trained Auror? Let alone a close fight while on full alert. Without any accident, she died, but her death will go down in history. Her death, like that of the Grand Duke of Sarajevo, will completely lift the fig leaf between the ULOC party and European countries. The difference is clear. Everyone must choose a side, Theseus Commander. No. Grindelwald roared, and he quickly walked into the auditorium, and the crowd stepped aside to make way for him. Grindelwald knelt down, gently stroked the witch's red hair, and said to the people around her, send this young warrior back to her family. He stood up again and gave orders to the crowd. Apparate. Go. Start from here and tell everyone the truth. We are not seeking violence. Grindelwald's words were like an edict. One after another the figures turned into smoke and disappeared. Among them are his followers, but also people with ulterior motives. At least Aurelius saw Paul and his men leaving in a hurry. Soon, the remaining figures were scattered. Except for Vita and a few other members of the Wiccan party, there were only a large number of Aurors. Of course, Aurelius also saw Aberforth, Dumbledore and McGonagall among them. Newt, Tina, Yusuf, Lita. Are not here. Aurelius was a little surprised. It's understandable that they're not here, but their absence means that many things have changed. For example, Rita may not die. Can Newt have the confidence to fight against Grindelwald if this woman is not dead? Can Hughes have the confidence to join Dumbledore instead of choosing to side with the devil? Etc. Aurelius suddenly remembered something. They were not at the venue, but they seemed to be still in the cemetery. Na mani, na mo lao, mani mo lao mo, na mani, na mo now mani mo gia mi. Na mani, na mo na, mani mo na mo. Chantings like the Sanskrit sounds of hell sounded from all directions, and Aurelius' eyes narrowed. It's begun. Is this the Suo Tien Zhenhun? An invisible pressure was exerted on his shoulders, and Aurelius keenly discovered that his apparition seemed to be sealed. Can Suo Tien Zhenhun seal the phantom? His expression became more serious. This is crucial information. However, it seems that the heaven-suppressing soul is not as powerful as imagined. Aurelius discovered that what was blocked was only the magic spell of disembodiment, but it still could not stop the phoenix. Could it be that Suoshan Zhenhun, with such a ridiculous name, is an anti-apparition? I don't believe it. Aurelius narrowed his eyes, and black mist rose from his body. Na mani, na mo lao, mani mo lao mo, oh, so lively. Endless black mist filled the center of a huge golden bowl-shaped barrier. Every wisp of black mist is where Aurelius has touched. Northeast, southeast, northwest and southwest, 4 golden square formations are particularly conspicuous. More than shamans took off their official uniforms of the later Jin dynasty, and were shirtless and clasped their hands together. On their strong muscles, complex and mysterious totem tattoos shone brightly. What you see are 4 kinds of animals: rat, hedgehog, snake, weasel. Aurelius looked strange. Is there one missing? As if following his words, a snow-white fox penetrated the underground venue and soared into the sky. Fox white, yellow willow ashes, feelings are the five immortals? Get into formation. Yahoo! More than formation shamans stood up and shouted. The leather drums in their palms sounded, and the magic wands in their hands waved. The 9-sided golden bronze mirror shone with great splendor, and all the shamans chanted. This is the tune. As the sun sets and the sky turns dark, the doors of every house are bolted. Gentlemen on the road rush to the inn, birds rush to the mountains and forests, and tigers return to the mountains. Birds rush to the mountains and forests, and when they have found a place to stay, they must return to the mountains to be safe and sound. Contrarian, right? Aurelius felt strange in his heart, but when he thought about it carefully, Shen Tiao was originally the word for dancing to the great god, and dancing to the great god was a skill of shamanism. There was no supernatural power in my previous life, and the divine tunes were sung by 2 people, which made people laugh out of habit. But this Jin Shan shaman casts spells using the great god of dance. It seems quite reasonable. Complaints are complaints, but it does not affect the shaman's performance at all. Accompanied by the chanting in the mouth and the sound of the leather drum in the hand, the 4 great immortals, yellow, white and willow gray, except the fox, also rose from the 4 square formations respectively. The 5 immortals gathered together, each dancing, and the original animals put on clothes and hats without knowing it. What's this? In the park below, Newt, who had not yet recovered from his grief, looked up at the sky in horror, and Tina beside him was also at a loss. This is a trap. We were fooled. Tina looked ugly. No, why? Newt shouted. Who knows why? Damn it. There is anti-apparition here. Tina looked ugly. What happened? Rita helped Yusuf and ran out in a hurry. Look. Countless tombstones are bathed in golden light. The magic power of the 5 great immortals gradually broke into powder, and rain and dew fell on the ground in the tomb. Roar. Yaw. Various strange roars came from the ground, and a humanoid ghost poked its head out with a menacing look. Attack. Attack. Fight me out. The Aurors rushed out from the underground meeting place, and under the command of the commander, they released a magic spell towards the golden bowl in the sky. In particular, the 4 conspicuous square formations withstood a large number of attacks. How dare you try your best even though you are a small skill? A grunting voice echoed in the cemetery. Call Mr. Huang to show his power. Wang Tai-sin, who was above the formation in the northeast, screamed, his eyes glowed white, and he turned his head to cover the sky above the Aurors. The Aurors, who were on full alert, found that nothing seemed to have happened. What happened? The Aurors felt strange. Is there really nothing wrong? Avada, 7 or 8 green lights suddenly lit up, and the target turned out to be their colleagues. What the hell? Fight back. The enemies from within shocked the Aurors, and the Aurors who originally fought against the enemy in a 3-person team instantly fell apart. The 5 corpses on the ground made them unable to trust their former companions, let alone trust each other to form a team to fight against the enemy. Good guy. You have a yellow skin, right? Aurelius looked at him in a daze. Don't blame him for his lack of experience, it's really because the style of painting is too inconsistent. It seems to be a group soul-stealing curse. Aurelius looked carefully and noticed the clues. Regardless of the special effects, the effect of this trick is to control people. Once your will is not strong enough, you will be controlled by others. Horus has dabbled in the 3 major forgiveness spells, but compared to the simple and crude life-killing spell, the other 2 are not deeply involved. But Aurelius still discovered that the shaman's move of asking Mr. Huang for his power had strong traces of the soul-stealing curse. It's just that the way of casting the spell has changed. Great, there is another confirmation for my magic transformation theory. The Aurors were not in a group, but the hungry ghosts in the garden were so happy that they rushed to attack the Aurors. Split into pieces. Thunderbolt explosion. There are many obstacles. Avada, it's useless. It's useless. This is a ghost, not a human being. The ghosts in the East are so unreasonable. They can interfere with reality, but all physical attacks from reality are useless to them. Seeing 7 or 8 more Aurors being bitten by the ghosts, the other Aurors shuddered. What are these? Just when a group of Aurors were helpless against ghosts and could only be reduced to food rations, the voice of a British Auror rekindled their hope. Go away. Vadavasi. I saw a hungry ghost flying backwards like a bullet, hitting the golden barrier in the sky, screaming and turning into ashes as if being burned by fire. The Auror himself couldn't believe it, and the group of ghosts couldn't help but pause. The whole world seemed to be on hold for a few seconds. Wadi wasi. Wadi wasi. The Auror finally found a savior, throwing out spells one after another as if they were free of charge. And among them, there is an alien mixed in. Avada chews a big melon. It's useless. No, it should be a hit, Aurelius thought, because the ghost is already dead, so it can't die a second time? It doesn't make sense. You must know that in the future, Voldemort used the death curse to kill the fragments of his own soul. This shows that the death curse should be able to work on the soul. That is, ghost has no soul, Aurelius guessed. It's not hard to guess. In the worldview of the Harry Potter world, the soul will go to the world of the dead after death, without exception. There's no reason the dead in these cemeteries could escape. Aurelius also didn't think that the Jinshan shaman had the ability to pull the souls of the dead back from the world of the dead behind the curtain. What on earth is that ghost? This has to mention ghosts. The ghost is not a soul, or a complete soul. It possesses the consciousness of the deceased. The consciousness is a part of the soul, but not the soul itself. Therefore, these ghosts should be the product of a mixture of the consciousness of the deceased and negative energy such as yin and hostility. So why does the humble Wadi wasi work wonders? Aurelius pondered for a moment, then waved a magic spell. The ghost is coming. Call out. A hungry ghost flew towards Aurelius involuntarily. Wadi wasi snapped. The hungry ghost turned around and flew back, hitting the barrier and dissipating.